With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome to Jerez for the first of the European rounds in the PRL GT3 Fixed Series. Daytona season is over on the iRacing service, and it's time for some different circuits, let's say. It's time for round 3 of the PRL GT3 Sprint Series a little bit later on, but first, the GT3 Fixed Series, where setups are not to be tampered with, but the racing should remain as interesting. We've got over 40 drivers set to go racing here in this first race of the evening. That's myself, Ian O'Leary, and Darragh Thacker taking you through the action. It's been a great start to the season for Ricardo Delgado, I think it's fair to say, Darren. 19 points, I should say, already at the front of this championship. He's got a chance to extend or at least consolidate that here tonight.
Yeah, and the pack behind him is chasing him pretty closely. It's going to be an exciting one all the same, but always great to see some racing at Jerez. Very different. Of course, they're to Daytona, as you would expect. We've got a great-looking calendar as well, looking all the way through to the likes of Donington Park, Mount Panorama. The Hockenheimring to end out the season really varies, and I think it's going to give us a nice collection of racing towards the end of the season.
Yeah, we're on a different continent from the last, from every race from now on, the only consecutive ones for round 1 and 2. And as I say, he's had a very good time in the USA, has Ricardo Delgado. 19 points is his advantage at the front of the Pro Drivers' Championship, heading into the third round of the championship. David Bush III is in second place, with Andrew Trickett and Jay Steffi tied in third place. Then Matt Sheff, Dale Pedersen and Sully Sad all tied for 5th place. It's very, very close indeed. There is a bit of a gap further behind after that, with Brett Furman 72 points behind. Richard Saavedra and Herbert Pineda are tied on 70 points down in 9th place. Excuse me. The AM standings are currently held by Buck Hamilton. He's got 5 points over the rest of the field, first of which, of course, is Colin McKenzie. Another 5 points back to Joel Pagaro and Pete Mezier, who are tied in the third place points. Then a bit of a gap back to Thomas Rep, with Alexander Potvin in 6th place. Ian Southern is in 7th. They're tied. Then we've got Dave Jensen, Luke Davis and Aaron Sunday tied as well at the bottom end of the standings there. Then the team standings. The Riot Motorsport team are leading the way here, first of all, with second place currently held by Lunatic Racing. SGE Sports are a little bit further behind. Tachyon Simsport, the only others to have more than 100 points. Then SRT Orange and E3 Motorsports tied in 5th. Parabola Cobalt are 7th ahead of Sim Racing PR, with BNO Cartomania and VHR Racing tied on points. There's a lot of ties today, although there are only 2 rounds, I suppose, at the end of the American leg of the season. Before we go any further, let's of course thank the sponsors who make these broadcasts possible here on RaceSpotTV, starting with Logitech G. Logitech G wheels and pedals are equipped with true force feedback to help you feel the road and own the race. Use the code PRECISION at checkout on logitechg.com for 5 to 10% off your purchase. Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox Sim Racing offers mid and high-end book boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. The Buckkicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more, visit moradness.com. And Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And finally, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. Once again, a big thanks to all of those sponsors who make these broadcasts possible on RaceSpotTV. We're here for 9 weeks in a row, 5 nights a week, from Sunday to Thursday, with the exception of Super Bowl Sunday, which is on the 9th of February. So other than that, we'll be racing on all of those days. That makes, what, my maths, 45 races, something like that? 45 nights, anyway. So you're very much welcome to join us. Just over 7 minutes to go in qualifying, and looking up and down the schedule, Darragh, I suspect that we may have had already the most important qualifying session of the season at round 1, but maybe in second place perhaps is this circuit.
Yeah, and Jerez, not exactly a circuit that invites too much overtaking, particularly in this kind of machinery. However, drivers will, I'm sure, have been practicing over the last couple of days, doing anything but Daytona to get themselves out of the rhythm, and getting a couple of moves done early on can be crucial at a circuit like this. But, you know, I feel like this is more known for its motorcycle racing than its GT3s.
I agree. Yeah, it's a difficult circuit as far as overtaking goes in four-wheeled machinery, and that's probably underlined by the fact that we don't really see very much top-level four-wheel racing come here anymore. The last time Jerez was on the Formula 1 calendar was 1997, for example. So it's been a very long time indeed since we've seen major motorsport at this circuit for four-wheeled machines, but still very much a two-wheel circuit. And you can absolutely see why as well. Very flowing corners, each one flowing into the next, and you can absolutely see why it suits bikes as well. But let's hope that we get some good racing in these GT3s as well. It's just going to be a bit tricky though. Braking zone's not very long, and the driver assists, especially that these cars get, doesn't help either as far as overtaking goes around this circuit. But I'm sure the drivers will enjoy driving around here. It's not one of those modern stop-start annoying circuits. It is a bit more flowing and enjoyable.
Yeah, I do like this circuit personally. I don't think we go here enough, really, particularly in, you know, little single-seater cars that we have. Maybe even the IndyCar Fixed Series on a Sunday night. Maybe that's asking for it too much. But it really is a great track to go racing at, with quite a lot of character. There's always, well, you're never too far away from a little bit of danger. Drivers have to be on their toes every single corner, and it really is a great place to see some of these guys take their cars out in anger. Great championship storylines to think about as well coming into this race, and every single position and every single point is going to count. As we saw how close it was between second place and 7th place, 2 points using 6 drivers. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a melee in that kind of part of the field tonight.
It certainly is. That is for sure. As we follow Matt Sheriff here through these corners. By the way, I don't think you're asking for too much, because we were at Lime Rock in the IndyCars on Sunday, so
that's true.
It wouldn't be out of the question at all. Although I think European rounds are very few and far between. We had the opener at Spa, but that is it as far as European rounds go in our IndyCar series. You can join that on Sunday nights, forgot what night it was there. Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we're live with those. Matt Sheff comes up towards the line here in the McLaren. 37.0 is the benchmark, and he's going to be about 6 cents away from that, but he will improve to somewhere around the AM pole sitter. In fact, he'll just jump ahead of him, Colin McKenzie, who's currently in 12th place. And the AM Championship is an interesting one for the moment. McKenzie just 5 points behind Buck Hamilton. And I've got to say, compared to the Pro Series, which has really changed the front of it, I've got to say, that the AM Championship, it's sort of got the same faces as last season up towards the front.
It does, but it's definitely got an interesting feel to it, with a couple of drivers really picking up some impressive results. Buck Hamilton's result last week, getting an overall top 5, really meant that he is right up towards the front of the field and going to be the one to beat. It's also great to see that we are seeing some of these drivers get some headline results, even if they are familiar faces. That may help into that, because getting some really, really impressive results mean that we're not just playing on scraps in the AM Championship in terms of points that these drivers are able to pick up, and that there definitely is a little bit of leeway for drivers to fall a little bit further back in their championship and recover somewhat. So definitely positives in that regard. We're not kind of seeing the same kind of form out of the likes of Buck Hamilton as we saw last week, with only the top AM driver currently being McKenzie in 12th, but still big points, much more than we're likely to see later in the sprint series.
Have a look at this lap time from Jay Steffi. This could be pole as he makes his way up towards the line. He's just going to miss out. Oh, he was improving in the first couple of sectors there, and he might be frustrated. He didn't quite get the last part of the lap together there. And it's still Jared Keane who leads this session, and he's the only one really inside the top 10 who's really going quickly at the moment. Morse a little bit further down. David Morse is going all right. He's improving at the moment, currently 1.1 seconds off of the pole sitter Jared Keane. And as I say, this is going to be a very, very important qualifying session, but so far, good manufacturer mix up towards the front. It's Porsche, Corvette, Acura, Porsche, McLaren, so no excuses as far as manufacture goes here for David Morse. He works his way through the final corners now, and the gravel you can see being kicked up in the background. He's in the gravel himself. That'll be an off track, and surely in the end of his lap time.
Yeah, and the number 21 looking to stay in P21 for the time being. Can't imagine that he's going to be able to improve too much on this lap. Thurman's gone up into the top 3, replacing Jay Steffi after his near miss into the front row. So we'll have to wait to see how anybody else can improve. Sully Sad is one of those drivers in the 79 car. Currently sat on row number 3, but a couple of attempts could shoot him right up into the front 2 rows. Through
the second of 2 left-handers, this is turn 8 for number 9, obviously, as Jared Keane goes faster. 36.9. I didn't think he was going to improve actually, but he did in the end, and it's the first time in the 136s here tonight. Fantastic from him. Ricardo Delgado hasn't been able to go any quicker since we've gone live, really. It's been one of his early lap times that has won out just for the moment. This, though, could be an improvement for Sully Sad. He's going okay, but I think it's just slipping away from him at the end of the lap here. We'll see what happens as he makes his way up towards the line. I suspect that, all right, well, that's he's certainly not done an 8-second lap time. We'll see what the time actually says as he goes over the line. I suspect it won't be much of an improvement. Oh, it is. Well done. He gets up to 4th place in the end, just a quarter of a second off of pole, although immediately Felix Feliz goes through and faster as well. This is a close qualifying session. 5 drivers covered by less than 3/10 of a second.
Yeah, and it's always great to see at the front of the field in the GT3 Fixed Series. It's kind of what we can get sometimes, some close battles towards the front. A couple of bumpers and, bumpers lying around there on the circuit as Nick Bruno is coming through in the 222. He's not looking for too much time to improve himself. Quite a few positions here, really tightly packed in this part of the midfield. He will come around the final couple of corners now, set his lap, as you can see where that motorbike long lap penalty loop comes into force. I think if any drivers are finding themselves out there, they're going to be having to question why they're taking that line. But Bruno towards the line, can he improve from P20?
Let's see, 38.5 is probably not going to see him any further up the field, and it indeed doesn't. There goes the checkered flag. And who is still out there improving? Sully Sad, one of them. Brett Thurman going okay at the moment as well, but we'll see if he does enough to improve. In fact, all of the top 5 are out there doing decent lap times. Out of the fast double right-hander comes Sully Sad. He clipped the gravel there, but that shouldn't be an off-track. Has it just taken enough time away from him, though, to prevent him from climbing the order any further here? We haven't got a second sector time for him at the moment, but we'll see what his lap time is at the end. 36, is it? No, it's going to be a 37.5, and that's no improvement for him. This is Ricardo Delgado. He is going to be able to respond here because Jarek Keane gone back to pit lane. This is it as far as pole goes. Philip Felice moves up to second. This is Delgado, though, trying to take pole.
Yeah, only a few more corners left to go as well then for the number 3, who is doing so well in the championship so far this season, looking to really assert even more authority than he already is, but that does no improvement in the end then, clearly.
No, he lifted off. I think must have gotten off track, but he lifted off. And then, well, that's clear to see at the end. He came into the pit lane, and that's pretty much going to be that as far as qualifying is concerned. Nick Bruno is improving and haven't got sector times for him at the moment, but 20th place is where he currently is, and he will stay because he pulls into pit lane as well. And that's it. As far as qualifying concerns, nobody is going to improve from here without a miracle. And so that is that for this qualifying session. It's going to be Jarek Keane who takes the pole position, a 36.9 from him enough. And Felix Felice able to join him on the front row as well, although whether you want the outside at turn 1 and 2, I'm not entirely sure you do, but we'll see what Felix Felice can do with that in towards turn 1. Delgado third, I think he'll be relatively pleased with that, but that doesn't seem that anyone could do anything about Jarek Keane in that session, who I believe is making his... well, I'll just check actually what he's done so far. Yes, he's only done one of the races, didn't do last week, and indeed in this first race didn't do very well. So he's already on the real back foot in the championship, but clearly not concerned with that. He's just going for this race, and he's got himself the best possible chance to try and win it.
Yeah, I think all of these guys will feel like they are definitely in with a shot, particularly considering the opening sector configuration at this circuit, allowing the idea to settle in the drivers' minds that there could be trouble from some of the drivers ahead. Picking a way through could be crucial, but definitely I think quite a lot of the guys, particularly in that championship battle from 2nd to 7th, who are up towards the front, definitely going to be backing themselves to get some big points. Why wouldn't you? Especially with the first couple of rounds that we've seen so far this season, we've seen that it really is anybody's game, so, you know, long let that continue.
Well, this is how Jarek Keane got that pole position in towards turn 1, maximising the entry here as he works his way up the hill. Just keeping it tight nicely there through turn 1 and then through 2 as well. There's not too much to this apex, to be honest. Just trying to keep it as tight as possible. Then shortcut turn 3 as much as you possibly can before 4. This is where things get a little bit more tricky, but this car, so much downforce these days. The GT3 is absolutely pinned to the road. Now one of the most important on the circuit. It's definitely as far as overtakes are concerned. You want to get a good late-ish apex from turn 5, but don't run out too wide. In qualifying, I'd imagine that a lot of people will have gotten off track from there. It's going to be one of those races as far as off tracks are concerned. Maximising again the entry towards the very famous turn 6. Best overtaking opportunity on the circuit here, keeping it tight to the inside again and using the exit. Turn 7 is pretty much flat out, but it is fairly sharp. Then in towards turn 8, which is even sharper and just take a bit more thinking about. 4th gear, just down to 3rd to get the nose in, and then not really running out too wide. Don't really need to open out this corner instead. This is turn 9, and then you'll run out wide through the AstroTurf there at 10 to open up this corner. It's a long flat out run from here as well. Fast, high speed, 11 and 12 yet to come, and so you need to just feather the throttle. Make sure you don't run wide into the gravel. There again, you can get more off tracks. Then widening out the entry to the final corner on this circuit. A little bit deep there actually, but you can pull it back for a late apex. That's exactly what he's done. And the run up towards turn 1 as well. Notice there how many chances there are to pick up off tracks. I'm sure that will have been a problem in qualifying. It will certainly be a problem in the race as everybody tries to avoid a penalty.
Yeah, and I think drivers will be, aware of that, very hyper-aware of incident points as we've, just coming off the back of the Daytona 24, drivers will have been hoping to keep their stints as clean as possible. That's still going to be in the back of some minds, I am absolutely sure, as we see the drivers getting into the warm-up session. Not necessarily as crucial to get the warm-up in as it is at other circuits, particularly in changing conditions. Last night in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, there was a warm-up in some rain in Mugello, and the drivers had to adjust to heavier fuel loads. It's a little bit more useful. We've got a slightly quieter track than we may otherwise have here at Jerez, but it's just a nice few minutes for the drivers to get their headspace in for the race.
A very good evening to Thomas Rep, who says he's giving best of luck to the grid tonight. He says he's missing the race for good reasons, as baby girl Ruth was born at 47 minutes past 10 this morning. Congratulations to Thomas Rep and his partner, and as he says, missing the race for good reasons, and hopefully enjoying the show. If you've got any time, that is. It's only born 8 hours ago, or less. So there you go. Congratulations to him, and maybe when there's a little bit more time in his hands, he can join us here in the evening for the GT3 Fixed Series, live here every night on Tuesdays. There is one of the Acuras, number 24, one of the few drivers actually out on the circuit, Evander Jonesfield. And this is one of the Parabola Cobalt teams. Good to see the Acura in the PRL for the very first time. It seems to have been taken up quite well by drivers. Jay Steffi's in 4th in the overall championship with it, and Colin McKenzie's in 2nd in the AMS with it. It's had a decent start to life in the PRL, but still waiting for its first overall win in the Fixed Series anyway.
That could come tonight. Who's to say? So we have 35 minutes worth of racing, and at a circuit where, you know, a little bit of contact can happen. Drivers can work their way up the order through not necessarily clean overtakes, but just by keeping it clean themselves and picking their way through traffic and cars going off in front of them. That could definitely happen tonight. And even with the pace of the Acura, goodness me, the Acura could be an interesting one. I don't know. I'm thinking too much in the medical headspace. Thomas Rep's got me thinking about hospitals. That's what it is. But yes, I'm sure that we can see a few moves, particularly from this Acura, through tonight. But you are right, it's nice to see a variation from the drivers. And when there's a new car coming in, you never really know exactly how well the uptake will be for it, with drivers almost settling into what they're used to driving. But it's good to see some drivers jumping ship from what they would have been doing last season for the Acura.
Yep, Acura, by the way, is a hangover reduction technique. If if you ever require such a thing. There you go. Let's have a look at the grid for the race, shall we? Get back on track. Jared Keane has taken the pole position with a 36.9 for SRT Orange, with Felix Feliz alongside. An all Porsche front row ahead of Ricardo Delgado. And then Brett Thurman, 3 Porsches in the top 4. In fact, make that 4 in the top 5, because Sully Sad as the last driver within 3 temps. Then Jay Steffi, who just lost a couple of positions towards the end. In fact, a few positions in the last few minutes of that session. Tyler Graff has got quite a picture there, hasn't he? He's 7th ahead of Jason Park. Dale Pedersen and Matt Sheriff round out the top 10. David Bush the 3rd and Ross Sortino are on row 6. 13th is then Colin McKenzie, the first of the AMS, ahead of Andrew Trickett. Directly behind McKenzie is Joel Peguero in the 2nd in the AMS. Then Venero, who's on the other side. Sean Murphy's on the other side of that. He's in 3rd in the AMS, 17th place, just ahead of Nikis Sanidakis. Pete Messier and Nick Brullo round out the top 20, with Waldo Warden and David Morse on the next row. Regan Chandler and Evan Southern round out row 12, ahead of Robert Jeffries. Then Sean Stecker, Herbert Pineda and Dave Peterson are on row 14, Ian Cabana and Ryan Chandler, who round out the top 30. Aaron Sunday is 31st, ahead of Matthew Harms. Then it's Alexander Putman with Luis Ortiz in 34th. Kevin Purpist is 35th, ahead of Sean Duhamel, with Neil Alexander next. Mark Bray, Evander Jonesfield and Christopher Rhines round out the top 40. J.D. Jensen is 41st, ahead of Andrew Sharp, who didn't set a time. Neither did Jakob Pickner or Scott Jeffries. And at the moment, Sharp and Pickner have not got onto the grid, and if they do start, it will be from pit lane, as will Louis Ortiz in the Corvette, who seemingly hasn't got onto the grid either. 69 degrees Fahrenheit, we're racing about a week ahead of real life, 1st of February. So track temperatures aren't that warm, and people would be very pleased about that, because the tyres do take a bit of a battering round here.
Yeah, and I think it's basically going to take a consideration for the drivers off of the table, not having to worry too much about tyre temperatures, maybe being able to keep that car in the operating window a little bit easier than they otherwise would be, maybe if this was, Season 2, Season 3 of 2025. So that's definitely something we're going to have to look out for as we get in towards the summer months. But for the time being, it's mild enough. I wouldn't mind it being pretty much room temperature outside here, Ewan.
Yes. 2 degrees where I am at the moment. Oh, that's Celsius, isn't it? That's going to make the Americans sit upright.
36, I think, 37. That's about right. 2 degrees centigrade.
I don't know. It's a silly scale anyway, isn't it? So you know, it's we'll go Celsius.
Let's hate on Fahrenheit, shall we?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Although we're very much in the minority of those who are watching this race at the moment, as far as Celsius and Fahrenheit goes. But there you are. Jared Keane just leading the field around, just behind the pace car. For whatever reason, Felix Feliz is not willing to go alongside him at the moment. Now he does, finally. But it's taking about half a lap or so. He's really holding up the field a little bit earlier on, but he's back there now. And I wonder what is going to happen in towards turn one. I have a feeling Jared Keane's going to hang on to the lead pretty easily, actually, with the inside line, and it's just about controlling the race from there as well, because arguably he's done the hard work of getting the pole position.
Yeah, he's just now got to really try and put that to good use in the early stages of the race. It doesn't really make too much of a difference if you do all the hard work, get into pole position, give yourself that great shot at trying to get away from the field, and then have an awful start, lose a spot or two, and find yourself embroiled in a battle that otherwise you could have avoided, and you earned the right to avoid by qualifying well. So definitely something that I think we're going to see a couple of these drivers wanting to avoid, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the likes of Jared Keane and Felix Feliz almost work together a touch in the opening lap or two to make sure they can get away at the front and isolate themselves from any kind of battles that could be happening in behind, because you can see the amount of cars on the circuit. If you have some kind of issue at turn one, it's going to really affect you all the way through the lap.
Yeah, 41 starters at the beginning of this one. Perhaps another 3 joining us from pit lane as well. It's going to be a very, very busy 35 minutes, and Jared Keane is not going to wait to let this one get off. And he immediately, out of the final corner, goes for it. And that's going to help the midfield a little bit get through these first couple of corners. The top 4 already single file. This field very stretched out indeed. It's Jared Keane who leads from Felix Feliz, and then Brett Furman, who's got ahead of championship leader Ricardo Delgado. Then in 5th place, Sully Sad under pressure from Jay Steffi and Tyler Graff, who just went down the inside there at turn 2. Of Steffi is on the outside at 3. That's not going to work, but the field stretched out already as Jared Keane gets off to a lightning start to this race. Oh, and in the wall in the background, somebody's been hit there out of turn 3, straight into the fence, and it looks like that will remain a solo car incident, but a real shame, I'm afraid, for Waldo Walden, who's been tipped into the fence.
Oh, no.
And there's an even bigger crash off at 5. Goodness me, huge accident down the back straight, and they're all going to have to slow down here to avoid some of them coming through at full speed anyway. And my goodness, that is a catastrophe on the back straight. There's going to be a lot of casualties down pit lane in a few moments, and it's still going on.
Yeah, I think including David Bush, Waldo Walden's down here, Ian Cabana, Joel Peguera, Sean Murphy, Ian Southern. The names just keep coming. As so many drivers, David Moss as well, getting involved in all of this. Massive incident on the exit of turn 5. The barriers, the nature of the barriers on the exit, not necessarily helping, but a couple of drivers getting out of shape, and that then basically bouncing us all the way down towards the rear of the field. Some drivers able to pick their way through. Mind you, Robert Jeffries started P25, he got to 12th.
Get this, 12 cars down pit lane after lap 1. That is perhaps the biggest crash I've ever seen in the PRL on opening lap. That is absolutely massive, outside of ovals, of course, which don't count, but on the road courses, that is perhaps the biggest crash I've ever seen. Peterson, Cabana, Duhamel, Sortino, Alexander, Bray, Peguero, Rhines, Jensen, Murphy, Morse, Southern, and there's a few more coming in from down pit lane after driving in, but those drivers I just read out all towed. 12 drivers towing on lap 1. That is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in a long time, if ever, quite frankly. Incredible to see that amount of cars go around. We didn't even have that in a wet Mugello yesterday in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, so really impressive from some of the drivers who were able to pick their way through. We did see, didn't we? You did mention it, that there were some drivers just coming through at full speed, almost like they found that they could, or they felt that they were able to just pick a gap and send it, no matter how many cars there were around them, which maybe isn't the safest policy, and they wouldn't have got away with that in real life, but clearly the game systems were allowing them to do so, and they were able to gain a few positions because of it. And I think a couple of the drivers, particularly now towards the front of the AM category, are going to be there because of that. The likes of Robert Jeffries, the likes of Sean Stecker from P26 to P14. He's 3rd at the moment in the AM category.
Herbert Pineda, Alexander Potvin, Kevin Berkvis, David Bush III and Pete Major all drove into pit lane. So the end number is 17 who come down pit lane on lap 1. an extraordinary start to this race, and not in a good way, I'm afraid. You'll have to excuse us in a few moments' time, by the way, where we watch replays for about 5 minutes, but that's what this start is going to require. Look at that down pit lane. That is absolutely unbelievable. 17 cars down pit lane, and all of them now have taken more than a minute's worth of repairs, quite understandably. But this is a start that you're not going to see again for some time in the PRL, and you're not going to see the like of anywhere for some time either. It's quite remarkable. Jared Keane got off to a good start though. He left immediately on the exit of turn number 1. Felix Feliz well, kept up quite well. Then Brett Furman got down the inside of Delgado well in towards turn 1, and so it's Porsche 1-2-3 at the moment, with Keane, Feliz and Furman leading the field pretty comfortably.
Yeah, it's almost a miracle that we see so many of these cars running relatively close together. A bit of gap between Colin McKenzie and Robert Jeffries, but considering that there isn't a big gap, considering the crash that we saw, it is almost a miracle at this stage of the race, albeit only 4 minutes in. But we're already seeing still so many cars down pit lane, so many cars that have already been put 2 laps down. In just the early stages, the traffic is going to get problematic if drivers are able to emerge from the pit lane, albeit I think some of these drivers are going to be in pit lane and staying in pit lane for the foreseeable future, quite frankly, with the amount of damage that we saw some drivers take. But for leaders at the front, they may not come up to too many cars in terms of lapping them on pure pace. There's going to be a lot of drivers that are involved in the lap 1 crash that will be being lapped, so that's going to be a consideration they have to make.
Jason Park gets down the inside of Jay Steffi, who was now here we go. This is part of the replays. That is started ahead of Pete Mezier, who eventually did get involved. He just got clipped by that Ferrari there, so his damage wasn't that bad. But look at it in the background. Some people not slowing down anyway. These drivers are going to get, oh dear, they're still crashing in the background. These drivers are going to get some hairdryer treatment, I'm afraid, from the admins and race stewards at the end of this. We'll try and get a replay from a bit further around the corner to see exactly where the root cause of that was. But that was Pete Mezier right in the middle. I think he was trying to slow down, but he got clipped. But in the background, even a few seconds after he'd spun, drivers were piling into that crash.
Yeah, and I think I've just seen in the chat for the GT3 Fixed Series, Neil Alexander's just put 23 minutes of repairs, which could suggest how much damage he has on the car, and that's going to take him pretty much out of the race. I don't think there's any real point sticking around for the final 12 minutes of the race if you're going to be that far down in the order. But that just gives you an example of how much damage some of these cars face, and you could see how the drivers, a lot of the drivers getting involved were hit from behind trying to slow down. Drivers behind them just not being aware of their surroundings and just going straight into the back of them. This is how it started. Contact involving Ross Sortino, really not much in it for the grand scheme of things. For what ensued, that is pretty minimal.
Yeah, it is. But then he's locked the brakes. He can't do anything here. They're just piling in. And look at that in the background. I'm not sure which Porsche that is, but they were about 35th there. They absolutely saw what was going on up ahead of them, and I'm afraid still piled in anyway. Not, as I say, not sure who it was, and I'm not going to speculate because that would be harsh. But because there are 4 Porsches who are down on pit lane, but it probably wasn't Sean Murphy, considering where he was on the grid. It could have been any of the others, though. Not braking, and I mean, as I say, these drivers are going to get an absolute slapping from the stewards and the admins as well at the end of this race, because that was a display of how not to avoid an accident.
Yeah, and I think some of the drivers not necessarily working out what the easiest thing to do in terms of self-preservation is on the opening lap, but lots of drivers in for repairs now. It benefits the likes of let's think of a couple of the drivers it benefits, the likes of Evander Jonesy-Field in 24th overall, towards the back of all of the cars that still are on the circuit, but likely to pick up some decent points compared to what we've seen Evander be able to do so far this season. The likes of Matthew Harms, Aaron Sunday, Ryan Chandler. In the AM category, they are looking to pick up big points in their hopes to get up the order in the championship, and inside the top 20 overall for a lot of the competitors who are going to be finding themselves a long way down the field. A top 20 could do wonders for them in a championship picture.
Giuseppe's continuing to fall through the field. That's Matt Schaefer who's now got through. He hasn't got any damage, has he? That would be strange. but he was, with only a few minutes to go, third in qualifying. Got passed by a few more in terms of lap times, and then he's been passed in the start of this race as well. He's down 3, which is down the most of anybody who hasn't spun so far in this race. It's a bit of a shame for him, but Andrew Trickett is now right in behind with Colin McKenzie as well, the AM leader, in behind as well. Again, really not sure what's happening here to Steffi, but he is really struggling. It looks like a very understeery Acura for the moment, although it's difficult for me to say without having driven it. It's certainly not a feeling you want around this circuit. So many high-speed corners, you don't want to be waiting to get onto the power even more than you already do around this circuit.
No, you're already almost short of how much confidence you have and how much ability you have to get on the power, of course. The confines of the circuit, gravel nearby, grass never too far away. That means that you're always a little bit worried about getting onto the throttle too early. Out of the corners such as this at turn 6, you can see you've got a little bit of exit curve, but that quickly disappears. And if you're starting to run out a little bit too wide, then you will be finding yourself eating some dirt and not really going to be the fastest line to do so. So drivers really kind of need all the confidence that they can get in terms of keeping their footing in some of these corners, because it can be quite a risk, quite daunting to try and keep it pinned. And at some parts of the circuit like this, towards the back end at turn 9, turn 10, it's almost half throttle most of the way around, and it's just trying to find that right balance.
Seemingly, Colin McKenzie is having a bit of a better time in the very same car at the moment, although he's managed to hold off Andrew Trickett on this lap, which is positive. This is one of the closest battles on the circuit now. Tyler Graff is just in behind Sully Sad. He got past Jay Steffi quite early on, actually. Tyler Graff, he was already down the inside of turn 2 on lap 1. No, I'm not sure he quite managed it on lap 1. He certainly managed it pretty quickly. And he'll be looking to move through the field, the championship contender, outsider a little bit, but he was a contender last season in the GT3 Fixed Series. McKenzie, of course, was a contender as the AM Championship goes as well. As we have a look at the top 3, 2 SRT cars and Felix Police sandwiched in between. It's a Porsche 123. I would suggest the car to have just about, although there is still a decent variety at the front of the field with manufacturers involved.
Yeah, and I think it's nice or interesting to see that the fact that we are being led by a trio of Porsches, and see if that can continue. Of course, that doesn't really run throughout the field, because with the Porsche with Sully Sand in the top 5, but then the next one's down in P10 with Andrew Trickett, so it's not really a clear advantage that the Porsches have got. Of course, we've got the Corvette with Ricardo Delgado that he has taken. He's the only Corvette inside the top 16 at the moment, and a couple of McLarens dotting themselves around the field as well. Ferraris, don't count out the Ferraris, but I think a lot of those drivers in the Ferraris are a little bit further down the order, all got caught up in the incident earlier on, so we're not seeing as many of them at the front of the field. But whenever you see a fixed series, generally drivers gravitate towards one car or another based on the performance of that car, but that's clearly not the case this season, and it's good to see that we still do have a decent amount of variation in that regard.
Right, we're on board here with Tyler Graff, still trying to work his way forward. Jason Parker's got, as you can see, the fastest lap of the race so far, by the way. That's why he's in purple, and that's a pretty impressive feat considering he is down in 7th. And by the way, it was a 37.2, which I think is faster than his qualifying time. He's managed somehow on pretty high fuel early on in this race. No idea how he's managed that, and he's half a second quicker as far as best laps go than anybody else in this field, but he has managed it, and I suspect that may well be the fastest lap of the race when we get to the end as well, but he's not been able to do anything with it just yet. Looks down the inside there of Charlie Graff and can't quite do it on this occasion.
Yeah, we'll see if Tyler Graff can work away past at some other point. Of course, a couple of great results last season, particularly picking up a win, I do believe. So it really is a driver that you cannot count out in any regard, because he is going to be right there. 5 top 5s last season, 2 poles as well. Really good pace. He was in the McLaren then. He's still in the McLaren now, I do believe, unless I'm heavily mistaken. And it's working well for him, and he's going nicely for the time being, but Jason Park hustling around some of these parts and getting very close indeed, and going off the road nearly for the 55.
What was that all about? Oh, Charlie Graff can't get it turned in either. No idea what's happened there, but Jason Park is going to have a chance here to get through. He's going to be out-dragged slightly by Graf on the outside line, and the straight line speed of the McLaren is always good, but he's going to have another chance at turn 1. No, not quite. No idea what was happening to Tyler Graf there. If at maximum through turn 12, you're favouring the throttle really through that right-hander, but Tyler Graf was full on the brakes there. That was extremely weird.
And it looked like Jason Park was almost trying to get in towards his wing mirrors into the final corner and successfully doing so, forcing Tyler Graf offline a touch and nearly creating an opportunity for himself to get into the top 6. But for the time being, Graf holding on, and that slight advantage in the straight line speed that he's going to have all race long towards turn 1 is going to really help him out. And I think it's going to give Jason Park a bit of a nudge to say you're going to have to make a move somewhere else other than somewhere conventional, and that could be here inside the line. If everyone goes for it. Cut off quite aggressively.
Dear me, that could have gone worse. Fair play to Graf there. He played the percentages, and well, he came out on top there in the end. Oh, Park could have had a chance there at turn 8, but he again didn't decide to quite go for it, and he didn't get the run he really needed to have a stab at turn 9 either. Up further ahead, by the way, Sad is quite close to Ricardo Delgado. Oh no, it is Ricardo Delgado, isn't it? I didn't quite recognise him from this distance, but it is. So Sully Sad is looking for a position as well, just up the road, but he's not quite as close as he was a couple of moments ago. Here goes Park into the final corner, does he? He's on the outside. Oh, and Graf's in. Maybe that explains a little bit about what's been happening over these last few moments as Tyler Graf pulls into the pit lane. He was making jokes, by the way, pre-race about him struggling with off-tracks. I don't think he's got a penalty within 15 minutes, but it is certainly an early stop.
Yeah, well, early stop, but still nearing half distance in this race. I'm not too sure whether it was necessarily planned that way. He crawls, it feels, his way to his pit box and gets it stopped. We'll find out how long this pit stop is going to be for the 77 car. He's going to drop himself right out of that front train. May just give himself a little bit of clean air to try and drive into. There are a few cars that are now circulating on the road after that big collision at turn number 1, but only a handful of the vast majority that got knocked into pit lane pretty early on, so he may have a bit of clean air to work with as there's a change for the lead, it seems.
Here we go. Feliz for the first time tonight gets into the lead ahead of Jared Keane, who gives it up for the first time tonight, but he's not going down lightly. Just for the moment, he's in the grass though. Oh, sliding through turn 7. Not ideal, but Feliz has gotten through. So this race does have a lead change within it. You always fear at the start of these sometimes that we might not see one, but Feliz has gotten into the lead. Now, how tactical is that going to be? And how much fuel saving was he doing earlier, by the way? Because he looks pretty quick right now. And all of a sudden, maybe this race is going to be a little bit more difficult for Jared Keane than maybe initially expected. It's still, though, 3 covered by a second early on in this race as we get to 1 lap away from halfway.
Yes, still all 3 of these guys heavily involved, and I'm sure will back themselves to get right towards the front. Let's see if Keane and Thurman can always try and work together to try and get themselves ahead of Felix Feliz. Feliz, though, just quietly going about his business and making moves effectively. It's it really is the game plan, I think, for most of the drivers here this evening. We look further back. The number 7 of Sanadakis is trying to go for a move on Jeffrey. Stekker's coming into the pit lane. It's all going off in the early teens of the order. Nick Bruno trying to get himself involved as well. This is a race he might want to talk about if he can stay where he is, because he's in the top 3 for the time being in class.
Yeah, Regan Chandler also into the pit lane, promoting Ryan into the top 16. So we've still got plenty of cars down pit lane, by the way. Still 6 of them with repairs that have numbered more than a quarter of an hour now, but some of them have re-emerged again. And maybe their pit stops have taken so long they won't have to stop for fuel normally, which is extremely weird. But anyway, it's been a weird kind of race. Felix Feliz, 3/4 of a second ahead of Jared Keane. This is surprising me, with no disrespect to Feliz, surprising me a little bit that he was seemingly sat behind earlier. He was coasting along clearly, and now he's suddenly turning the pace on and putting a bit of distance between himself and the pole sitter.
In qualifying and in the race so far, hanging around a little bit and then putting in a good performance towards the end of the session. We saw it in qualifying, getting himself right up the order there, and here sitting in behind, seemingly just following in behind, just not being too aggressive, maybe just trying to save the car a little bit before going for the move. Final corner will be negotiated then by the number 10 driver, who's lost a tenth or 2 in that final sector, but really nothing major. and Jared Keane is going to not have really a hope into turn 1 unless there's some kind of big mistake from Felix Feliz. So many drivers touching a wheel or two, as we saw there from Sanidakis on the outside of 12, but maybe that was Sanidakis trying to think about how he's going to enter the pit lane as he comes in.
Yeah, there really should be a pit lane entry sort of line like there always is on the pit exits, isn't there? Because you can legally go right from the very right-hand side of the circuit, brake right across the road and get into pit lane, because it's a bit of an awkward entry. So anyway, they might want to think about that. Anyway, let's have a look at the leaders again. Feliz all of a sudden has lost a bit of time. 0.3 of a second suddenly, and traffic is going to be a problem as well. With all of these damaged cars coming back out again for points, it's going to be a problem, as well as the leaders as well. Well, not the leaders, I should say, but some of those a bit further down who have made stops, and they're going to be coming out quite a long way off the back, and maybe even close to a lap down. Just up ahead of them at the moment is Regan Chandler, who made a stop, but he, I think, must have sped, because his pit stop was 54 seconds long, and so that's going to be a slight problem for him in these next few moments, or at least these two for the next few moments. However, I guess their pit stop can't be too far away.
Gone through pretty much 20 minutes of the race, 15 minutes to go. I think anybody who hasn't come down pit lane is going to be thinking about that in the not too distant future. This lap, next lap, maybe the one after that really is going to be the target. Well, for Felix Feliz and Jared Keane, they're going around at least one more time. Brett Thurman biting the bullet and coming in now as he takes that inside line into the pit lane, as he will get it stopped on the marks pretty shortly. Interesting to see that Tyler Graff made a move past Matthew Harms there for P14 overall. 34 seconds off the lead overall. Let's see where he comes out in comparison to someone like Brett Thurman, because it's going to be an interesting comparison to make, I think.
Yeah, it is, but the fact that he had to pass Harms is not great news, because that means he was stuck in traffic, and that's probably cost him some time. The reason why it was so impressive for Felix Feliz to get through, by the way, on Jared Keane, it was for this situation here. When Brett Thurman comes in early and tries to do a bit of an undercut, he's not now going to be slowed down by Keane, who might have played the team game and just tried to ensure that they were both undercut by Thurman, and they can end with a 1-2 SRT Orange, but he's not allowed them to do that. He's taken the initiative himself, he's taken the race on himself, and he's gotten into the lead. Here, meanwhile, goes Jason Park, and that was a look down the inside on Sully Sad. Just up ahead is, as well, is the championship leader, Ricardo Delgado, who looked like he was getting away at one stage. He's been pegged back again now, though, and he is defending effectively for third place, what will become fourth place after the pit stops.
Yeah, and interesting to see on the blend out from the pit lane that Brett Thurman's about 3.5 seconds ahead of Tyler Graff, so you would imagine the likes of Jason Park, Sully Sat are going to be right involved in the battle with Tyler Graff when they make their way down pit lane. We're talking a tenth or two in it if they're able to get a similar pit stop time to Brett Thurman. Jay Steffi is a little bit further back. He's trying to get through on Matt Scherf in that number 43 car, is just trying to find a way through. So difficult to even see where the track goes at times, but just about makes his way through safely and will likely come down pit lane soon.
Here into pit lane comes Jared Keane, trying to undercut Felix Feliz himself. Thurman, by the way, came out 3.5 seconds ahead of Tyler Graff, so that might well be a smaller margin than before, and someone like Sully Sad can be in a bit of trouble as far as that position goes. This is Sheriff defending from Steffi and Mackenzie. They're now all inside the top 5. Where is Thurman going to be in relation to Jared Keane as these three continue to battle away? Keane has had 11 points something stop. It was on the mark, though, pretty much. There goes Thurman through on the inside line. The two Porsches exchange places, but do they both leapfrog Felix Feliz?
You would suggest that with the undercut that Brett Thurman's been able to get that lap, that they could try and do something similar this time around. Felix Feliz may be the little bit of danger in terms of this race lead. He's got 3 seconds to Ricardo Delgado, who's also staying out a little bit longer. But the teammates of Thurman and Keane may have been able to pull something off here to get themselves back in towards the race lead here. Feliz, I'm sure, will pit in this lap. I can't imagine why he'd stay out yet another lap after this one. Maybe he's just going to short off the fuel numbers in terms of that pit stop time. It's stopped in the box, mind you. So let's see, through the final couple of corners he will come. Is he going to keep to the left hand side? The answer is yes, just about. And as you said, you can dive from the right to the left with as much anger as you want to, with no pit lane line, and he will get into the box now.
And you got Oh, careful! Oh, I was just about to say, you've got to be a bit more careful if you're in a group like this. And Matt Sepp very nearly got rear-ended there by Jay Steffi, who certainly wanted to enter the pit lane a bit more quickly. And they're all going to be slowed up here. They could even be behind the likes of Tyler Graff and Jason Park. I think we could be seeing Ricardo Delgado in a bit of... sorry, they're already going to be behind, and they could be further behind. I think we could be seeing Ricardo Delgado here as well, by the way, in a bit of trouble as far as his position goes. There is Furman and Keane. This is the big rejoin for the race. And Brett Furman's had a very good second lap to his stint here, but Felix Felice is going to give him a run for his money. Jared Keane couldn't quite do this. Oh, he's going to get there. Felix Felice has done it. He's managed to stay out ahead despite going 2 laps further than Brett Furman. And now all of a sudden it's Jared Keane who's under pressure. Ricardo Delgado had a very good in-lap as well. And all of a sudden he is battling for a podium.
Yeah, this is really turning into what is going to be an incredibly exciting final 11 minutes of this race. Thurman right towards the front, but Felix Felice with the advantage. Cricket off the road as well in the 514, and he is going to be feeling the damages from going off there. Keane dropping a little bit into the grips of Ricardo Delgado. Means that there is all of a sudden that battle for P3 that is going to be on, and the championship leader wouldn't mind getting yet another podium on the season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got 2 so far. And he would like to pick up the only spot on the podium he's not been at so far, which is the bottom step, 3rd place here at Jerez. 10.5 minutes for him to do it as well. Lap times here, by the way, are at the 1:38-ish mark normally. So it's a bit too... my maths isn't quite good enough to figure out how many laps to go just yet. Hearing that Chase Steffi has had a penalty, I'm going to presume that was for a incident limit, or did he spit? No, he sped, sorry. He was speeding in the pit lane. 52 seconds in the box. It was 52 as well for Sean Stecker. Regan Chandler, 54. Those 3 must have sped in pit lane. It's quite weird, isn't it? Because you have to slow down for the hairpin itself on pit entry, but actually as you're speeding back up again, those guys have just managed to get over the limit as they've gone on that short run towards the commitment line. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's... It's been blown wide open, this race, it's fair to say, with what we've seen in the final couple of... in the last couple of minutes, I should say. Felice, we didn't necessarily expect him to come back out into the lead, but he's in the lead. Thurman now the one fighting him. Keane now having to really look behind rather than battling in front to help his teammate out, maybe trying to get this race win. 9 minutes 30, we've got all of, 7-8 laps left in this race to make moves down at the likes of turn 1, down at turn 6, so the opportunities are going to start to run out pretty quickly. And for Ortiz, those opportunities to get deeper up the grid are going to be diminishing with every passing mistake, and he's well outside the top 20 now, or just inside, I should say.
He's made up so many places. I think he'll be absolutely delighted with this choice to start from the pit lane, by the way, after what we saw on lap 1. He's the biggest mover forward, I believe. Well, he certainly was at one stage. He's not anymore. Excuse me. Evander Jonesfeld is 21st, but has made up 18. And Scott Jeffries has made up 18 as well, but he's a bit further down. So, yeah, some real big gainers further down. It just shows you, and it will show, I suppose, those drivers who piled into the accident. If you just slow down when you see one in front of you, you might actually make up places.
Yeah, it's almost the way, Doors in the hair goes back how many thousands of years, Ewan, that going slowly is going to always benefit you in some regard, and we would have seen that there. Starting from the pit lane school is going to help you out as well. And it's tracks like this where maybe if you looked at the idea of starting from the pit lane, it's like, yeah, well, I'm going to be right the way down the order, but I mean, you can't necessarily foresee, but if there's a 20-car pile-up, I'm going to be able to gain about 20 positions. And hey, that's exactly what he's done. So good work in terms of the prediction department. We need to get some lottery numbers tonight.
Well, I don't quite know what you're talking about with tortoises and hares, but I'm going to guess I can...
Have you never heard the story of the tortoise and the hare?
No, I haven't, or I certainly don't remember. So there you go. That's one to Google later. Jason Park is as Furman goes a bit wide there. Jason Park gets close to Tyler Graff in the battle for 6th place. Furman, though, will not have the chance towards turn 6 to have a go at an overtake here. It's 5 laps to go, including the one they're on at the moment, by the way. And that's not a lot of time, actually, when you think about this circuit and how difficult it is to overtake. He's going to have to work on this very, very quickly, Brett Furman.
Yes, Thurman trying to get back to the lead. I still can't believe you don't know what the tortoise and the hare is, to be honest, Ewan. We'll have to talk about this post-race. But Thurman right behind Felix Felice, almost trying to just get into the rear view mirror, get into the wing mirrors as well, make sure that he is well seen at the moment, and almost trying to force Felix Felice into a little bit of a mistake, maybe into the final corner. Just try and stick your nose down the inside. Not going to happen this time around, and Felice will continue in the lead. 7 minutes left to run in this race, and we're going to have all of, 5 laps, I believe, left to go now.
I think it's 4 now we cross on to. Don't quote me on it. I'm not the
I think it really is time.
Organiser. It's going to be quite close, yeah. Trickett versus Mackenzie into the final corner has gone the way of Andrew Trickett. He's got back on the road after spinning here at turn 2, and he's back into 9th place. It looks like, though, Colin Mackenzie is on his way to a race win, and that would give him the championship lead as well, with Brooke Hamilton nowhere to be seen in this race at the moment. And he is going to be the new championship leader, by the looks of things, is Colin Mackenzie, as he was at many points throughout last season in the Fixed Series. Down in towards turn 6 for Thurman. Again, not close enough. He's got to start making some moves, though. He's got to start at least probing, because he is going to run out of time otherwise.
Yeah, you really can't afford to sit behind for too long at this stage of the race, with time really at the essence. Thurman knows how to get himself back to the front of the field, though. Is definitely an experienced driver in that regard. Of course, got the win in the opening round of the season. Wasn't able to really replicate that 7 days ago at Daytona, but definitely a driver to watch out for, with a great bit of pace underneath him. I remember him telling me he was surprised that he had the pace to win the race a couple of weeks ago, but he's got a similar amount of pace tonight. He's definitely going to be a contender right the way through the season, you'd say.
Into the pit lane goes one of the lap cars as they try and just stay out of the way. There's plenty of cars a lap down, although plenty of retirements, as I'm sure you can imagine, as well, after the opening lap crash that we saw. 5 minutes to go, and it is going to be, it is going to be 4 laps, you're right. So we are going to get, as far as Felix Felice is concerned, too many laps, to be honest with you. He was soaking up the pressure, or is soaking up the pressure rather well, but it remains to be seen how long that can go on for. Felice at the moment is down in 15th in the Drivers' Championship. He didn't finish last week at Daytona. And Furman right up the back of him here, just putting that pressure onto him, trying to get this victory and replicate that performance from Long Beach. As he makes his way out of turn 5, he's tucked in the slipstream, but it would have to be a lunge from this distance. Now, there's the first look. There's the first chance to get in the mirrors a little bit there from Brett Furman.
Yeah, he's just trying to unsettle the line and rhythm of Felix Felice now, and just try and put him, almost seek some doubt into his mind on whether or not he's going to be able to make the racing lines that he's been able to make all race long, just by sticking your nose at the inside. Almost threaten the contact that he knows Felice won't take, but just to make sure that he is more than in this battle, because it's difficult. We've seen it's very difficult just to make a move on pure pace around this circuit, particularly when the drivers are so evenly matched. You really have to try and craft your way through, which is far easier said than done. And Brett Thurman doing everything he can, too far back once again to have any kind of throw to the inside of the final corner, but around the final corner they come. 3:33. I think we're going to get a third lap in here, but it's going to be tight again, regardless.
I think it is going to be 3. Oh, contact! And a battle here for 6th place between Tyler Graff and Jason Park. The Acura there straight into the side of the McLaren. And this feels like a replay from earlier on, but it is, of course, live pictures. It is the fight that has re-emerged because of the pit stop phase. Jason Park dropped back a little bit. He's got to redo this one of Graff, although that was very easy. Graff missed his braking zone there at a corner that really doesn't have a very big one, and the position for 6th changes.
Yeah, and it swaps around for Jason Park. I mean, the fastest lap as well for the 55 car. Really impressive to see him have that under his belt, not necessarily right at the sharp end of the field. So Jason Park putting in a great display towards the sharp end, but not quite yet on the podium positions. Thurman still trying to plug away here in the SRT orange car. Not going to be able to do much here, going a little bit wider as well than Felix Felice. But time really is now running out. He has to get that extra tenth or two closer if he's going to have any chance of making a send at some point throughout the rest of the race here.
2.5 minutes to go, just about. And Thurman is starting to run out of time. 2 laps to go. He's been following Felice really closely for a while. Tyre temperatures surely are going to be starting to rise here, and things are going to start to get difficult for him. He's just got a little bit wide there through turn 11. The gap goes over half a second. It's Felix Felice pulling away with a race win here, perhaps, at Jerez. There's the look back. He's got more than half a second out of the final corner. 1:50 to go. The line, by the way, is a long way down here, so factor that in. But there is going to be 2 laps to go. There's the line, there's the bridge. Unless this lap is about 10 seconds short, longer than it normally is, for whatever reason, this is going to be going on 2 more laps, and Felix Felice is starting to put a bit of an arm's length between himself and Brett Thurman.
Yeah, Thurman just not able to do enough down into turn 1 to give Felice any kind of worries. I think Felice will be thinking about this maybe being the last lap. Maybe he'll know that we're likely to have a second, but that is not the kind of line you want to really be having to settle your nerves in the final couple of laps. Turn 3 is not the easiest place to go racing regardless, and a wide moment again from Thurman. It feels like, for the time being at least, Felice has this under control enough to get it home to the checkered flag.
Yeah, I think Thurman's tyre temperatures are really going through the roof now, and he's very nearly lost it there through turn 4. You will have seen him catch the slide in live pictures. It was a good save, actually, but he is losing time as a result. He's not going to be able to recover those tyre temperatures. It's just about managing those now and trying to get closer somehow, but more than 6 tenths of a second with Felix Felice ahead. It is very comfortable as far as it can be at this stage for the driver of the number 10. He was in the top 10 in the opening round of the season at Long Beach before that DNF last time round. In fact, both of the top 2 having difficult rounds so far, meaning that they might be up towards the front in the championship later on in the season, but we just won't know, especially before week 5, which comes at the early part of February. Here we go, though, towards the end of the penultimate lap. Still seconds on the clock, and Felix Felice goes over the line with just 2 tenths of a second advantage. White flag, and there's 1 more lap for him to hold on.
Yeah, Thurman throwing absolutely everything at him into this final lap, looking for a little bit towards the inside at turn number 2. Not going to find it there as well in the middle of the corner. Rear end not sitting well with him. They'll work through 3 and 4. Doesn't look like there's going to be as much of a rear slide as we saw just a moment ago for them, and it will be a little bit safer. Thurman made the mistake at 5 last lap, went a little bit wide. Is he going to make the same mistake twice? I don't believe he will. He's just got to keep himself close enough. Jared Keen's arrived to the battle, but you'd have to say a little bit too late.
Yeah, it probably is too little too late for him as they make their way down towards turn 6. Felice has seen the best overtaking opportunity on the lap go into the rearview mirror, or the camera as it is these days, I suppose. On board with Thurman, he's got Keen to worry about more than he had for a while, and you wonder whether, if Keen had done this a few laps ago, what he could have done here, certainly as far as second place is concerned. Is there going to be any sort of lunge at the final corner? It's been a very, very close race, and it looks like for the 2nd week in a row we're going to have a finish and a gap at the end of the race of less than 1 second. Felix Felice looking to hang on. It's not the best run through the double right-hander. He's going to go on the defensive here because Thurman's going to be onto this. He's going to have a dive up down the inside of the final corner. Oh, he just backs out of it. Felice crowds him out of road, and he's going to win this race in the end. Felix Felice takes the victory after starting on the outside of the front row. He gets past Keen, holds off Thurman, and he wins here at Jerez. A fantastic drive and a fantastic finish as well, as Jared Keen couldn't quite get involved either. Further behind, Colin McKenzie is going to take a top 10 here in the AM class, and he's going to take charge of that championship for the first time this season.
Yeah, a fantastic result in the end for Colin McKenzie to get himself right to the front of the field. The likes of Bruno Sunday Jeffrey's not really fighting with him in the championship yet, so he wouldn't mind them picking up some big points in this race. But for Thurman, he was so close to really making that send work, and Steffi's going to try something similar. There's no room at the end. There's contact. Steffi is going to just tap around. I think that's Matthew Harms, as they've both gone around at the final corner. Steffi waiting, though. I think he realises that was probably on him and is going to let Harms take the position regardless, which is always nice to see. He could have driven around him there, but held his hands up and let Harms go through. Thurman, though, I really thought he had it for a split second there. Felix Felice just about holding on.
It was very close. I'm not sure what caused Felice to lose so much time through that double right-hander, but my goodness, he just about hangs on. It was actually closer than last week. At Daytona, 8 tenths separated Ricardo Delgado and Matt Sheriff. This time round, just 5 tenths. As Felice takes his first win of the season, we get 3 different winners in the first 3 rounds. Brett Furman and Jared Keane for SRT having a good points day there in second and third, with Ricardo Delgado first time off the podium in 4th. He held off Sully Sad with the first of the Acuras. It was Jason Park. He did get ahead of Charlie Graff in the end, then a bit of a gap back to Matt Sheriff, Andrew Trickett and Colin McKenzie, the AM winner in the rest of the top 10. Andrew Venaro finished 11th ahead of Nikos Sanidakis, with Nick Bruno second in the AMs ahead of Aaron Sunday. Robert Jeffries and Ryan Chandler in the top 5 as far as the AMs are concerned. Waldo Warden and Louis Ortiz rounding out those finishing within a minute of the win. Matthew Harms and Jay Steffi rounding out the top 20 after that spin late on. Sean Stecker, Regan Chandler and Evander Jonesy Field finished on the lead lap. Scott Jeffries and Dale Pedersen 1 lap down, and then those that had incidents. Pete Measure and David Bush, the third, got out there onto the circuit 5 laps down. Herbert Pineda, Kevin Bergqvist and Dave Jensen all recovered from their crashes as well. Sean Murphy got back out onto the circuit and finished in 31st ahead of Alexander Potvin. Ian Southern and David Morse were next ahead of Ross Sortino, the first to spin in that Ferrari. Ian Cabana got back onto the circuit for the very final laps as well, but he had a very long repairs. Then Joel Pagero, Dave Peterson, Sean Duhamel, Neil Alexander, Mark Bray and Christopher Rhines all didn't get back onto the circuit again after retiring on lap 1. Let's have a chat to Felix Feliz, who wins here at Jerez, and congratulations Felix on the win. Tell us about that last lap and just how much pressure you came under in those final lap, in the final corner especially.
I tell you what, man, I was worried that I was going to run out of fuel, but I saw that Brett was running out of fuel as well. So I was like, oh my God, and then I messed up the last set of corners, and I knew Thurman was going to stand it, so I just had to defend for my life. Thurman and Keane, those guys are so fast. I'm just happy I managed to get the win and redeem myself. Last time I was here, I got pole. I spun on the second lap, so hey, I'm just happy.
Well, congratulations on the win as well. I mean, what were you expecting from this circuit when you qualified second place? Because I suspected the pole sitter would have a very, very good chance of winning. What did you expect?
Well, to be honest, I just needed to qualify well. I knew I had a really good pace, so I figured if I managed to get in the front row, I could either put pressure on pole or I could run away with it. But hey, again, I'm just glad I got the win.
Well, congratulations on that, Felix, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks very much. Felix Feliz, the winner tonight in the Pro class. Second place was Brett Furman, who couldn't quite get the win in the end. Brett, welcome and congratulations on finishing second. Tell us your side of that final lap.
Well, I got to hand it to Felix. He was quick, so I didn't have much for him other than desperate moves. So I wanted to get the second. I wanted my teammate to get the third, and so just got to play it out.
Absolutely. I mean, you managed to undercut your teammate, but not quite Felix. When you came out ahead of Jared, did you expect to be in the lead at the end of the pit stops?
I knew it was going to be tight. I was hoping that at least I'd have a side-by-side, but he had it, so...
well, congratulations on second place, Brett, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. See you next week.
Thanks very much, Brett Furman, second place here at Jerez, and just ahead of Jared Keane, who finished third. Welcome, Jared. Congratulations on third, but are you disappointed to have finished in third after qualifying on pole at this circuit, or still pleased to be on the podium?
Oh, no, pleased to be on the podium. Long season, shooting hard for a team championship. The little half spin or little traction thing I had going on in the uphill right was a little frustrating. It's easy, really easy here to overuse your tires, to get a little flash heat in them, and then you don't have the traction that you need. And so that, and maybe a pit entry that was a bit too slow cost me, but hey, 2 podiums for the team, I'll take it.
Exactly, I was going to ask you about that. It's a great day for SRT Orange. You're going to be making strides in the championship, that's for sure, after starting the day 74 points behind. How does that make you feel going into the next 6 rounds?
That's the goal, is the team championship. Brett is just an insane driver, and we work well together. Dave Morse works hard with us as well. So that's our focus. Let's see.
Let's see indeed. Congratulations on third, Jared, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thanks so much. A little shout out to Jackie and James down in Florida, by the way. Sorry about that.
No problem. Jared Keane, third place here at Jerez in the Fixed Series, ahead of 10th placed Colin McKenzie. I've moved in the wrong channel, but he won in the AM class. And welcome to you, Colin. Congratulations on that. Didn't actually battle with many of the AMs throughout that race, but you still managed to take the win. How was that race for you?
It was nerve-wracking for a little bit. I mean, the start was what it was. I was actually super lucky to kind of just get through, and most of my AND competitors who were behind me got caught up in it. So at that point, it was kind of just survive and not hit the incident limit.
Absolutely. How difficult was that? I mentioned it in qualifying that it was difficult to stay off the off tracks, but how close were you in the race to getting a penalty?
I had 2 more. I got a 4X in the start of collecting in that collection, and then I got another 4X coming out of the pits. So a couple off tracks. I was pretty close, but ended up being able to pull it through, no penalty.
Well, congratulations on that, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks very much. Colin McKenzie, the AM winner here in the GT3 Fixed Series. Stay with us. Still more racing to come here tonight from Jerez, as it's the second race of the night. The GT3 Sprint Series coming up here from Jerez in just a moment. Venue again, this time for the PRL GT3 Sprint Series here. 40 minutes of action still to come here tonight on Tuesday nights on RaceSpotTV. Glad to have you along again. I'm still Ewan O'Leary, and Darren Thacker still alongside me. Hugo Louis still behind the cameras as well. Qualifying just about underway at the moment. We'll show you the pole lap in a few moments' time, and indeed the starting grid as well. But before we get to any of that, let's tell you about the championship standings. Kevin Donorio is leading the way by just 8 points ahead of Guillaume Levesque and Christian Steenberg in third. Juan Lemus is in fourth, and then you have to go a bit further back to Elliot Brudzinski, who's gone to the Acura for this season for the first of the Field and S racing cars. Chris Beeks is the first of the SimCity racing cars in sixth place ahead of Nick Ludecki. Then it's Alvaro Diaz in eighth ahead of Emmett Lindqvist and Uthman Alui in 10th. First place for Blake Ziti so far in the AM standings, just by 1 point now ahead of Devin Brock, with Mark Elliott and Kevin Kienitz not too far behind either. Jermaine Warren is fifth ahead of Gavin Ammerman. Then Dino Velo, who's a bit further back, Marshall Scare, Justin Welsh, and Adam Henwood, who didn't get any points from the opening rounds. Team PGZ are leading the teams by 21 points ahead of Field and S Racing. Vimmer Racing, Team Mexico GP are third ahead of the Apex Racing team with Advanced Motorsports. Then SimCity Racing, who are fifth, and their third team, who are sixth, tied with Soul Pit Precision Racing Gold. SimCity Racing's second team are eighth ahead of Soul Pit Precision Racing Blue, and then SRTE rounding out the 10 teams at the front of the teams' standings. just about a minute. In fact, I think the checkered flag's about to fly, if it hasn't already, in the qualifying session, and it is about 30 seconds away from doing so. Feels a little bit like last season, this one. Simon Terrio at the moment at the top of this qualifying session.
Yeah, Terrio's not necessarily had the kind of pace that he had towards the back end of last season so far in 2025, but this is looking like it's going to be a pretty good result for him to kick off his evening here in Jerez. Only a handful of seconds left on the clock. I don't think we're going to get a closer finish than we did last week between Guillaume Levesque and, of course, Kevin De Nooijer. That was 0.000. I think we're going to be hard pressed to get that here at Jerez.
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere it was 0.00012, something like that. So yeah, rounded down to the thousandths by 0 thousandths of a second. At least that's what I read anyway. That's a remarkable finish that I don't suspect will be beaten, as you say. As far as whether Terrier's time is going to be beaten in this session, well, Guillaume Levesque is going okay at the moment, even though checkered flag has flown. He doesn't need to improve by very much, Guillaume Levesque, to take the pole position away. And here he is in the final corner right now. Is he about to steal this away in the final moments? They're already down in the low 36s, by the way. He goes towards the line and not quite. He's not quite as quick as before, but you could tell that he was pushing there, and he was pretty close as well. Paulo Diaz probably the closest to improving as well, but Tisa unlikely to. Again, it's going to be all about qualifying, although not all, I suppose, a little bit on the race as well. But Porsche look like they're going to take their second pole position in the 2 series here today.
Levesque actually said another lap time there that would have been good enough for P2 anyway, just not good enough to get him any higher up the order and get himself onto pole position, so disappointing in that regard, but I'm sure he will come back. Ubaldo Diaz, I think, is going to be a long way down in terms of the pace. I may be thinking of somebody else. No, he won't be. He's going to be somewhat in the ballpark. Let's see if he can get up the order. Only needs a couple of tenths. He's going to find himself into the pit lane, so he will end his session in P6, and he nearly misses the pit lane. That is going to be a concern for him going into the race, I'm sure.
Yeah, not a great way to introduce confidence. He's going to be practicing that in warm-up, I would suggest, that we're going to have here in a few minutes' time. But it looks like Terrio has indeed taken pole. Everybody is in pit lane, indeed they are, and that will be that. 34 drivers in the session at the moment. We'll see how many of them actually start the race, but a few less than what we saw in the Fixed Series, which is a little bit more populated so far this season, as we already reached the 1/3 mark of this one. Quite remarkably, really. Next week we'll be back again, going racing at Suzuka. And by the way, tonight we've got a 1/3% chance of rain. So I'm not sure whether that's going to come a little bit later on, but that's going to be factoring into the minds of absolutely everybody as well, because it's the second highest chance of rain we've got all season in the GT3 Sprint Series. On board we go with Blake Ziti. We'll have a look at his pole lap here around this circuit.
Yeah, let's see what Blake could do then in towards turn number 1. Good result for him at Long Beach in the opening round of the season. Absolutely dominated the AM class. Was able to get a great qualifying lap time in, and wasn't challenged at all by his fellow AM class for that win. And he's replicating maybe a little bit of that form once again here this evening through the opening couple of corners, through 3 and 4, keeping it nice and tight, avoiding going too much into the gravel, as a couple of cars are clearly doing there on the inside, and following the car in front. Almost nice to have a slight marker in front of you, but it will give you a little bit of dirty air. They will nicely get out of the way on this run towards turn number 6.
A big braking zone, where I'm sure we'll be using that tarmac on the left-hand side to just help his turn in here. He just about gets to the apex, braking as late as possible, using the exit there, the AstroTurf, then through turn 7, which again, pretty flat out really, especially on low fuel. Then again, so many of these corners about opening up the next and opening up the entry. See how much they don't use on the right-hand side there, as they're just thinking about turn 9 already, and then how wide they're getting here through turn 10 as well, or for the entrance of turn 10 as well. So interesting how you're constantly thinking the next corner ahead at this circuit. Now through the double right-hander, which can go pretty wrong pretty quickly, as we've just seen in that Fixed Series race, although these drivers do get the chance to maybe tune some of these things out of their setups before the start of the race. Out over the line, Blake Ziti will go, and he will take the pole position for the AM class. It's pretty interesting that we've got a lot less AMs in the field this time round than what we had in the previous seasons. But you've got to remember, that doesn't really matter because, after all, the points are scored on an overall basis rather than on a class basis. And so the fact that there are less AMs doesn't really matter. We only got 6 to the start, for example, at Daytona.
Yeah, definitely. This is already the numbers that we have come to see of seasons gone by, but still drivers attending, like Corbin Lenaway. I'll be honest, I looked back across from some of the sounding sheets and it gave me a little bit of a jump as I started speaking. But great to see Corbin in the session. It's always nice to see some of the cars, some of the drivers' cameras that are on as well. We always like to see how the drivers are doing.
Yep, we certainly do. 23rd overall is Corbin Lenaway. The Impact SimSports Acura we're currently riding on board with. Impact SimSports second team, 12th in the teams and 14th in the teams for the Impact SimSport number 1. There's Miguel Angel Fonseca breathing on average or beating his heart at 99 beats a minute. He'll just be calming down a little bit, and I can imagine that heartbeat will be ramping up quite a lot. And I was hearing, by the way, from a driver I was speaking to last week, that their heart rate, especially in the big races, gets up as big as 180 beats a minute, which is quite high. So I'm not suggesting it will get quite that high for Fonseca, but either way, he will be, I'm sure, heightened a little bit more when he actually gets to the start of this race, which is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I remember, I know we bring this up a couple of times, but it's worth mentioning now, when we were out of the Esports World Cup, BS Competition had a couple of people who were there to almost monitor some of the heart rates of the drivers. I think it was Tyler, who was part of the team, who was looking over some of the data in terms of how the drivers react to certain times in the race and how they can react differently. So it is always actually an interesting part of a race. Some drivers don't really have their heart rate increased. I think it was Kike Oliveira who was said to basically not react to anything. His heart rate didn't move whether he was in qualifying in the race or just sitting there normally. Some drivers would spike and would dip. So it's always interesting to see, but 180 I feel that's a tad excessive, I'd say. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, sort of endurance athletes at really high effort get to about that, which is not when you're doing any sim racing. At least you shouldn't be when you're doing this. I know it is a slight physical exertion, but it's pretty light as far as it goes. Although having said that, through the COVID years, there's a lot of drivers who weren't able to drive because of COVID, and you just get too out of breath. So these things do come up, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, that was one to have a look at with Fonseca as he drives in this race again, as he so often has been in the GT3 Sprint Series in the past. Let's have a look at the grid then with Simo Terrio on the front for the Apex Racing team with Advanced Motorsports. His teammate Guillaume Levesque alongside. Ryan Poutel gets into third ahead of Nick Ludecki. Elliot Budzinski in the Acura this season alongside a fellow Acura of Alberto Diaz. Then it's Corbin Lenaway with Chris Peets alongside. Kevin Tenoyer, who won last week, finishing 9th in that qualifying session ahead of Juan Lemus. Then Uthman Aloui and David Mendonca, who's the first driver, just over half a second off of pole. Matt Stednick is 13th ahead of Kevin Simpson, with Ethan Bass, the first of the Mustangs, in 15th ahead of Steve Baker. There is Miguel Angel Fonseca, 17th ahead of Nicholas Mazza. Still haven't seen any of the AMs, but here we go. Blake Ziti on the front for them, ahead of William Fenton, who rounds out the top 20 now in the land of changing setups. Gonzalo Cortez, 21st at Noah Anderson, with Kevin Kinitz, the second of the AM drivers, in 23rd, just ahead of 24th placed Devon Brock. Sean Carmody finished his 25th in that session, ahead of Joshua Spears. Mark Elliott and Aidan Young sharing an all-AM row 14, the first of the all-AM rows. Chris Stewart and Dino Vella round out the top 30. Marcel Scare and Gavin Auerman, the final drivers to set time. Peter Nobwell and Marc-Andre Desjardins did not. Peter Nobwell at the moment has not gone onto the grid, so hopefully he does, but he is running out of time and indeed has not made the grid. 69 degrees Fahrenheit on the circuit. It is the same starting time as the Fixed Series, and it looks like the same weather as well. It doesn't look like we're going to get any rain.
No, it should be nice and dry here in Spain. It's almost as you'd like to expect from the Spanish, southern Spanish coast. But of course, February isn't always the best of time of year. So good that we're going to get some dry running, especially after Daytona at the weekend, where a lot of drivers, of course, will have been affected by some wet weather running. Nice to get some nice bone dry activity on the circuit and 40 minutes worth of racing, which should hopefully see some good titles in the championship. Interested to see whether Levesque can get himself back to the front of the field once again, second week in a row. But Simon Terrio trying to replicate a little bit of that magic that he showed last season. Of course, his teammate and champion last season, Vincent Trepanier, not with us to start 2025 so far, and he's almost flying that flag alone at the moment. So he's not going to have the support of his teammate as they did for each other in season 4 of 2024.
Yeah, it's good to see the Apex Racing team livery on the grid as well, though. I can't remember when he joined the team now, but anyway, he's in the Apex Racing Team Academy and able to use the livery on the outside of the front row for this race as well. As I mentioned earlier on, Simon Terrio has not had a great start to the season by his pretty high standards. 12th place after just 2 rounds, and neither of those rounds really would be ones you want to be taking as drop weeks, to be honest, because you'd want if you're going to have a bad round, you want to have a really bad one, I suppose, and then take your drop week from that. But actually, even last week at Daytona didn't finish that well. He was down in 10th place, and as I say, by his standards from last season, that is quite far down. He'd certainly be looking to bounce back with a win here.
Yeah, let's see if he can try and deliver on that. I think that's going to be a lot of the drivers towards the front end of the field that are going to be looking to deliver a win. But, you know, as you mentioned, some more than most. Levesque definitely right in the sharp end of that. Interested to see as well, just in behind these guys with Puktil and Ledecky, how Ledecky and Budzinski might be able to try and work together a touch. But that's for us to see as we get in towards the race. But I believe the pace car is about to pull into the pit lane and get us going for 40 minutes worth of racing here at Jerez.
Looks like it. Be a surprise if it stays out, to be honest. Let's hope not. We'll be.
I don't think we ever really considered that happening, have we?
No. Well, let's hope we don't have to as we get racing underway. And let's hope as well that this start of the race is a little bit calmer than what we saw in the Fixed Series. I'm not sure how many of these guys will have been watching, but let's hope that less than 17 drivers have to come down pit lane early on, because, as there's already stacking up in the background and already a crash in the background as well. There was a big concertina effect before the final corner there, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later, but already we've had contact. Terrio doesn't go out immediately out the final corner, but now finally does, and already 3 wide in the background. That's a very good start in the midfield there, as almost a jump start maybe. A big dive down the inside as well from one of the Acuras as they go towards turn 1. It was always going to happen. It was 3 wide into the first corner, and I'm afraid it was always going to end in tears. Levesque is still under pressure though, here from Nick Ledecky, who made a pretty good start himself in the Acura. Not quite as good as Budzinski, but pretty decent. On the outside though at turn 4, he's going to be getting nowhere. Will he get down the inside at 5 maybe? He's got Budzinski on the outside line, and so he's not going to be able to quite use the circuit like he wants to. Budzinski's going to try and get the exit instead here, perhaps on Ledecky. And maybe Ludecki's going to try and get Levesque as well. He's going on the defensive here. Here goes Budzinski, squeezing down the right-hand side. Levesque doesn't know where to go. He's down the middle of the road as there's a spin in the background for one of the Porsches. Just about the front 2, hanging on to their positions, and Ledecky as well, getting into third ahead of Budzinski on this opening lap.
Yeah, great start for the number 16 driver, getting himself into a great position to fight with Guillaume Levesque, who I would have thought would have dropped a little bit further behind Simon Terrio with all the fighting that we've been seeing, but he will stay within the second. Uthman Alaoui is just about in the triple four, going to get himself up into P7 as well ahead of Ryan Puktil, who's had an absolutely disastrous opening lap from right in the front couple of rows. He's re-overtaken the 444, but we'll have to see if he can recover any more of those positions behind the likes of Kevin De Nooijer, who of course is a driver who is fighting right at the front of the field in terms of the championship, because he is the championship leader. Can't afford to let Guillaume Levesque get too far away there, because they are the 2 at the front of the field.
That's Puktil and Diaz there making the contact, I think. It's certainly Diaz who's gone for a spin, and he dropped right the way back to the back end of the field, by the way. He's 31st in the race, and just having to dip around the outside of him there. one of the Porsches. Is that Poutel, I suppose, who had to go round him? No, Chris Beats, apologies. That was the SimCity Racing driver. This is a bit further behind. Later on in the lap, 9 through 9 and 10. And well, that replay is erroneous by the looks of things. And we have had somebody go off the road in live picture there. You may have seen it in the small bottom right-hand box. Saw all kinds of smoke, and a car spun round as well. And Marc-André Desjardins has gone down to pit lane again now. So we'll try and see what that was all about as well. It's side by side between Fonseca and Cortez for 16th place. Just a little bit further up from these guys in the field. In fact, it's for 14th, I should say. There they are, just a bit further up. All kinds of things going on. In fact, the battle for the lead in the AMS, very much a part of this as well. This is the spin, and it was Kevin Simpson who was spun around. Oh, and teammates getting spun around down there at turn 2.
I think that was almost spinning in sympathy, getting onto the gravel there on the outside line, the rear end just stepping out. There wasn't actually any contact at all involved there, but disappointing all the same. This is an interesting little battle, though, at the back end of the top 20. Aiden Young involved here behind Blake Ziti, of course, the GT4 specialist. 21 GT4 wins in the PRL, no wins anywhere else in terms of other machinery that we do have here in the PRL, but a great result for him last week. Drove through the field. I think he'll be looking to do something similar. He's P18 for the time being. We'll see if he can get through on Blake Ziti in the opening stages here. That'll get him into a good spot to try and attack the top 15. Budzinski and Ledecky are fighting though, and I believe the 91 is back ahead of the 16 as they tussle after the opening lap.
Budzinski is through into third place, and the gap's getting large as well for the leader. Simon Theriault is beginning to get away from the rest of the field. Corbin Lenaway is closing in as well, 5th place, ahead of Kevin Dennery, last week's winner, who's made a decent start. The Corvette, Acura, McLaren, similarly wide actually, and I wondered whether that shape might well do well around here, but it seems the Porsche has got that little bit of an edge over this circuit. This is a battle though that's going to continue on for a little while, I would expect. Budzinski through on Ledecky, and that is a good start for them. They don't look the same, but they are part of the same team, I should add. Oh, Gavin Hammerman! He was going for that spin even before he was hit there eventually by the Acura. That is a moment that could have been a lot worse for everybody.
Yeah, and luckily enough that everybody's going to make their way through somewhat safely there. We've still got a lot of time on the clock. You don't really want to be seeing drivers getting hit off or collisions being made too early on in the race, but we have seen our fair share of that in the opening lap or two. Through the final corner we will dip though, and Ledecky going to have to be aware of Corbin Lenaway just behind him. The 161 looking pretty racy, and Ledecky dropping back a touch from Elliot Budzinski after Budzinski made his way through. Gaps are, it is stretching out a bit at the front of the field. It's fair to say in the front of the field, as that was Noah Anderson that went around. We did see him briefly, didn't we, in the live pictures, but that was quite a hefty hit into the wall. But I was saying this the grid is stretching out a little bit more than we saw in the Fixed series, and I wonder exactly why that is.
Yeah, not sure really. It's not really happening in the midfield, I've got to say. Well, it is happening up front. Steve Baker there was having a look down the inside, but can't quite do it. He's a pro now, by the way. We've seen plenty of AM performances from him. Apollo Diaz is just in behind here, by the way. He's up to 26th. After spinning on lap 1, he'll be one to watch throughout this race. I'm sure it'll be very entertaining coming back through the field. Again, there he is in the red, white and black. He's down 20. Biggest mover downwards, unfortunately, for him. And he's going to try and recover as many of those as he possibly can down in towards turn 5. The Mercedes in the background, meanwhile, is going to be trying to get through. That's Dino Vella and Marshall Scare going side by side into the corner. Marshall Scare in the AMG not quite able to do it. I think he's the only AMG in either the Fixed or Sprint Series, the only one we see on Tuesday nights these days.
Yeah, it's great to I have to say, I agree with you there. Interesting to note as well, with so long left in this race, that we do have that really close battle in terms of the AM lead, and of course a lot of the drivers involved in the midfield in terms of the pro division that are kind of getting themselves involved towards the back end of that top 20, Aiden Young being in that as well. Budzinski fastest lap in the 91, clearly showing he's got a bit of pace in that car, and Ledecky now over a second off the back back of his teammate. He is dropping a long way back now and really is starting to struggle behind his teammate, and 3.2 seconds off the lead after 7 minutes. It's not looking kind for him to try and get back towards the front of the field.
No. Well, let's see how this race continues on. We're still 33 minutes to go. Well, good evening to Jaden Conwright, by the way, who's written in to say good luck to his Fildenez Racing teammates. Says he's too sick to drive himself, I should say. But here in spirit, well, a good afternoon or evening to him, and hope to see you back fit and well next week. This is Miguel Angel Fonseca, meanwhile, in the 413 in the Acura, right towards the back of the route. He's behind William Fenton, who's making the step up to the Sprint Series. And you can just see how it is a bit of a step up from the Fixed Series to the Sprint, because Fenton down in 15th so far in this race, and similar in the standings as well, because as I say, it is a step up certainly.
And Williams' brother Eric getting a podium last night in the LMP3 GT4 Challenge, so he'll be looking to try and replicate that this evening, albeit from P15. That is going to be a little bit more of a difficult task. Fonseca, we can see on the inset there, heart rate is about 120. That seems all right. Doesn't seem like we should be too worried about his health with that one. He's currently sat in this train for P15, P16. Aiden Young just behind him. He may start to get that heart rate increasing, though, if he's going to get embroiled in a battle with Fenton for P15, but just enough speed off of the corner from the number 7 to keep him out in front, it seems.
Just about. If you take that late apex, you do tend to get a better run. Although you arrive at turn 1 with a bit more speed, it looks like he wasn't quite expecting that on that occasion. He slightly missed the apex, but he got away with it, and he will hold on to 15th for the moment. Aiden Young still tucked in behind. Not to say the WSR car looks very good in the or the Corvette, I should say, looks very good in the WSR colours, I should say. Oh, Fenton, very wide. He's going to get away with it, but surely he'll be under pressure here through turn 5 and then down towards 6 as well. He's going to be offline from here, and he's going to be all out of shape now. Fonseca with a great chance. He's got to take chances like this at this circuit. You don't get many, but no. Oh, if I was Fonseca, I would have been down his inside there, but he's not taken the chance there. He's not taken the opportunity given to him by Fenton.
Yeah, and Fenton is going to just about stay in P15. Fonseca trying to hustle him all the way around this circuit, though, to get that move done. Aiden Young also lurking just in the background of this battle to try and make his way through. I think also trying to make a bit of a step up from the GT4s to the GT3s, maybe just trying to balance the two of them with the GT4s. It may be becoming a little bit boring for him, being 2 wins off the all-time leading win record in the GT4s and the PRL. We'll see what he can do throughout the rest of the season if he's able to attend in the Sprint Series. His Chevy is not going to be diving to the inside at the final corner. I thought for a second he may have a bit of a go, but he's too far back, as Fonseca may have been at the back of William Fenton. So difficulties in the battle here, and Aiden Young may even have a go at turn 1.
Does he have a look? Oh, he is. Here we go. Is he lacing up on the brakes? He's going to be given the room, perhaps a little bit too generously from Fonseca. And that is going to see Aiden Young up to 18th place, or 16th place, I should say. So decent overtake from him in the end, but perhaps if I was to be critical at all, Fonseca was a little bit nice on the way towards turn 1.
Yeah, but it's the kind of fear that just a little inside move can instill in some of these drivers, just not wanting to get involved in any kind of collision. It's easy to do at a circuit which isn't the widest, let's be real, and if you go too far wide at turn 1, you're finding yourself in the gravel pretty soon. So I think Aiden Young, again, getting in the wing mirrors, getting Fonseca thinking, getting him looking not in front of him but behind him, and putting him offline, getting him off the racing line, and, you know, putting him out of P16, and Aiden Young doing a very effective job in just almost forcing the overtakes completely cleanly and getting his way up the order without really having to work too hard for it. So really impressive from the 427 once again. We see it time and time again. His next target, though, is the Fenton brother, and we'll see if he can get past the 7 in the next lap or so.
It's certainly the biggest group in the field. This is stemming from Ethan Bass, I think. Well, maybe that's a bit harsh on Bass, probably from Mazda, but the gaps aren't very big anyway back here, all the way up to Uthman Aloui, although I'm not going to put this group on him. There he is, just ahead of Ryan Puchtel in the SimCity Racing Porsche, and As I say, there are some little gaps in this train, so I'm not going to say that Louis is the cork in the bottle by any means, but he is at the front of a rather large group at the moment. Just at the very back of it, by the way, ZT is there. He's the leader in the AMD, just ahead of Kevin Kinnitz at the moment, and that is 1.8 seconds between those two in the lead of that class. This, though, is put on his way down in towards the hairpin, and he's trying to work his way through back into 7th place as well. But we are very much settling in now, third way through this one already. We're single filed out, and now everybody's got to start thinking about how they're going to make these overtakes, and they have to think quite hard as well around here, trying to get that done, because it is difficult to make these moves.
Yeah, really, you have to craft it around here. Not quite the almost the overtaking fest that we were able to see at Daytona last week, with the amount of draft and slipstream you can get towards turn number 1. We see it time and time again, making moves with far more ease than we're seeing tonight. You really have to effectively work your way up the order, and efficiently as well. You cannot really afford too many mistakes. Little mistakes could cost you a position or two, and that's going to then maybe exponentially worsen your chances in the race. Loads of battles ongoing on the circuit, as we can see in the split screen. Denoyers wouldn't mind getting a position or two. He's falling a little bit too far back behind Guillaume Levesque, and I'm sure he would like to, and Corbin Lenaway is standing in his way for a top 5 at the moment.
Yeah, but it's been very static in the top 6 for now. Further back, it's been a little bit more exciting. Diaz is in this group, I think, a little bit further back, although Alberto Diaz has actually just been into the pit lane, so he would have been involved, but that's quite a smart choice. He's 9.8 seconds in the box, which is quite on the short side, actually, but Alberto Diaz may be doing something pretty smart that could get himself up the order here, and maybe back inside the top 20. Maybe there's an outside chance of a top 10. There is Diaz, down at the bottom of your screen. He's running laps on his own. That's the best thing to do at this stage in the race, I feel, because otherwise he would have just been stuck in traffic.
Yeah, it's difficult to really judge exactly where to go in terms of any kind of strategy, but we saw it earlier on, didn't we? A couple of drivers going early on the pit stops and working out all right for them, not necessarily going too well, especially if they caught traffic towards the end of that overlap in terms of their stints. But let's see if it works out this time. 25 minutes, still quite a long way to go in this race, considering we had a 40-minute timer to kick us off. Still well more than half the race left to run, and I think drivers, particularly the drivers at the front, they're going to be holding on to those pit stops until pretty late on, I'd say.
We'll see how those games go. I think generally the trend, in case you don't normally see these races, generally the trend is to just wait quite a long time and run this fuel low. But actually, it's so difficult to overtake here. We might well see some more games than we normally do as far as the tracks, pit stops go. When we see at other tracks, so at Suzuka next week, that's going to be a little bit easier to overtake, but still not easy by any means. When we go there, just less than 25 minutes to go in this one, though, and Denoyer is just going off the back of Lenaway a little bit. I suspect that is on purpose, because as we saw with Brett Furman in the previous race, if you stay too close for too long, you'll overheat your tyres and you then really start to struggle.
Yeah, and the tyres, even though it's not the hottest of days here at Jerez, they're not necessarily going to be feeling too happy with you. The nature of the circuit, lots of high-speed corners, lots of load are going to be going through those tyres, so you're going to have to be managing them all the way through the race. As Aiden Young tries to get past Gonzalo Cortez, who also tries to get through Nicolas Mazza up in front, the number 3 under all sorts of pressure, and the number 9, as Aiden Young looking for any kind of move that he can make through turn 8. They're about to go. 9 and 10, the double right-hand, are a difficult place to make any kind of move, and I think Aiden Young will have to be waiting for maybe the final corner, maybe turn 1, to make any kind of inroads on P14. But you can see his desire to get up the order clearly with a bit of pace in the back pocket at the moment.
Yeah, he's doing well here. He's young, but he's just finding it difficult to actually make these moves in the end, as you would always expect around here. That's wide, though. That was pretty wide. Not sure whether that was Mazza or Cortez just up ahead who did that, but either way, it certainly allowed Young to get a bit closer. Now then, out of the final corner, late apex. He's in the slipstream, but he's not as close as he was to Fonseca when he overtook him in towards turn number 1. And so it's another few corners spent in behind Cortez and another few corners spent losing time as well, which is what it will feel like to Aiden Young at the moment.
Yeah, 10-6, I'm sure, is where he's going to target to make that move on the number 9 car. And Cortez will surely know that and be prioritising his exit from turn number 5. They'll fly through 3 and 4, though, and they'll work their way up to turn 5. Let's see how this works out between Mazda, Cortez and Young. It'll be a slightly tighter line into the entry of the corner from Aiden Young. Does it help him on the exit? Let's see. They are all right nose to tail as they make their way down this straight as they dive downhill. Mazda feeling a need to defend. Cortez goes to the outside line. Can Aiden Young pick a way through here?
Can he pick up the pieces? Maybe, as Cortez goes to the outside of Mazda. Gives him just about enough room on the outside. That'll give him the inside at 7 and 8. Flat out pretty much through here. Commitment required from both of them. And Young doesn't make it 3 wide, probably the right idea. Cortez on the inside is going to go through, and that was very wide from Mazda. He's let the McLaren through. Will he let Young through as well? Not quite so easily. In towards turn 9. Aiden Young to the outside line through 10 as well. Oh, it's close. He's just about got through, though. It was a pretty squeaky moment between the two of them. But Nicholas Baza loses 2 places in a matter of corners. And that had been coming. Certainly it had been coming for Aiden Young, who was hounding the 2 ahead for a little while there. But Mazda's lost 2 places in 1.
Mazda getting forced a little bit wide. It gave Aiden Young the opportunity to almost decide the line. Cortez on the inside. Aiden Young thinking that was probably going to be the better line. Ended up being correct, following him through in making that move. The issue for these guys, though, is that they've lost another couple of seconds to the likes of Ethan Bass and Matt Stapniak just up the road. So if Aiden Young is to get through, he's got a little bit of work to do before they get towards the top 12 in this race. But Mazda, I think, really going to be focusing now on keeping Fenton behind and maybe trying to get back after the likes of Cortez and Young now.
See what where this group goes from here. That's a good line from Young, certainly better than Mazda had through there. Just missed the apex slightly in the Porsche. Nothing doing this time round in towards turn 6. Guillaume Levesque has gotten to within a second, by the way, of Simon Terrio out front in this one. Elliot Budzinski with the fastest lap of the race is only 2.5 seconds behind as well, so maybe the lead of the race is not quite over just yet. I thought when he got out to a good start, Terrio, that he would continue to run away at the front, but that hasn't happened, and Levesque has just pegged him back here.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting see how this is playing out now as we get towards the halfway point in this race. The toing and froing is occurring somewhat, but it's going to have to stop at some stage. Pit stops also coming into frame for drivers as we will enter the second half of the race with nobody at the front of the field deciding to come into the pit lane just yet. Levesque, though, I think Levesque is sitting and waiting for a move on Terrio. I'm not convinced that Terrio necessarily has this one completely under control. Levesque was able to try and play around a little bit with the strategy last week. We'll see if he can do it again this week, as there was a spin a moment ago. Who was that going down the order?
It wasn't a spin, actually. I thought it was, but it was Gonzalo Cortez coming in pit lane, unless he spun in pit lane or on his way in. Anyway, this is a lot of opposite lock there for Corbin Fenway. I don't know if you caught that, but that was through turn 4, where the Acura was getting very wide indeed. But this is a good chance to see the Acura on board for one of the first chimes. It's new into iRacing for 2025 and new into the PRL, therefore, for 2025 as well. At the moment, he's in 5th place, just in behind fellow Acura drivers Nick Ludecki and Elliot Budzinski just up ahead here.
Yeah, Budzinski, after that good start, really picking up a couple of spots, has been able to keep himself well away in that battle from that battle with the likes of Ledecky, Lenaway and Denoyer as well. So really good to see Budzinski keeping it nearer the front of the field. He's got Levesque about 2 seconds now up the road. It's not the greatest advantage for the top 2, and I think Budzinski would back himself to maybe try something on the strategy to close that in.
The gap's not large in the top 10 for the moment. Only 11.5 seconds covering the entirety of it. David Mendonca, who is currently 10th. And then you get this group again. Mazda now at the head of it, although Aiden Young has gotten clear of it. Gonzalo Cortez has pitted from it as well. Into the pit lane, meanwhile, comes Kiernetz, Kevin Kiernetz. And where has Blake Ziti got to? He is somewhere around here as well, but couldn't see him just from out there. But anyway, There'll be changes in the AM class, I'm sure, in the latter half of this race, as Fonseca again applies the pressure to Mazza, who, for whatever reason, has really seemed to struggle in the first half of this race.
Yeah, a couple of drivers who just really haven't necessarily had the race pace they had in qualifying. Maybe how they set their cars up in the race, particularly the circuit like Jerez, difficult to overtake here. So if you set your car up a little bit with a favour for qualifying, that may help you to just get a little bit further ahead than you otherwise could have been and defend from there. Fonseca's trying to go to the outside of Mazza down in towards turn 6.
Oh!
Not going to work out this time around as rain is starting to fall on the circuit.
It is raining. 1/3 chance of rain here this afternoon, and it has come despite pretty clear skies when we started this race. It's really clouded over and it started to rain. Now then, is it going to be heavy enough for us to see proper wet weather running, or is it just going to be some psychological rain to put these drivers off their step? Well, we might have answers already here. Brzezinski is just ahead of these guys, Litludecki is just ahead of Corbin Lenaway and Kevin Denoyer. But this is why so many of the front runners have been waiting for so long.
Yeah, that's a lap car. That did also psyched me out a little bit. I thought that was Lenaway getting involved in some of the battling. It's a little bit wide there from Kevin in the number 5 car at turn number 1. He's got to be careful. Is that a pit stop? Is that? Yes, it is. Nicholas Mazza coming to the pit lane in the number 17 car. I can't imagine he's going to be going onto wet tyres, that's for sure. But he will make a pit stop with 17 minutes or so left in the race. This rain doesn't necessarily look like it's terribly heavy, though, so I'd be surprised if we see anybody go for the wets before the end of the race.
Yep. I suspect it might be that kind of rain that just factors in to your vision only and not necessarily the feeling in the car, but it'd be great fun if it did really tip it down in these last 16 minutes. I've got to say, purely from a spectator's point of view, we'll wait and see on that front, of course, as we continue to follow this battle for 4th place. Ludecki wasn't long overtaken by Brzezinski actually, but look at the gap that has now created itself ahead of these guys. Ludecki very much holding up Lenaway and Denoyer, I would suggest, as they now make their way towards the double right-hander. They must be getting towards the stage where they're running out of fuel now anyway. The top 21 are still yet to come in, but other than that we have seen everybody come in. So about a third of the field. We've got Gonzalo Cortez is at the front of that train we were watching earlier on, by the way, with Nicholas Mazza, Chris Beats, Obado Diaz and Kevin Kiernitz all involved in it. So it's a very interesting group, but effectively that group we were watching for about 12, 13 places has all gone to the pit lane and it's all come out back there now.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a mix now of where drivers are on the circuit. I think it should be sorting itself out, you'd hope, in the next 5 minutes or so with everybody coming into the box, but we're yet to necessarily see that. This is Steve Baker in P17 for the Solpac Precision Racing Gold team, fighting away with the number 40 of, I believe that's Blake ZT. No, it's not, it's Sean Carmody in that car, as they will go into turn 2 side by side. You don't see many moves being made here, and we have it throughout this race, but that's going to be nicely done by the Solpac driver, and he's up into what is P16 and will just about keep himself ahead through the turn number 4.
There's already a lot of spray being kicked up, but I wouldn't worry about that. It generally does do that a long way before the wet tyres are required, so it's going to be a surprise to see anybody making the jump even this early on, despite the spray that is going to be kicked up for the next minutes, I would suggest. So Baker up to 16th place, but I get the feeling with 14 minutes to go, a lot of these drivers are going to be waiting now for the very end. They're just going to see and find out whether they're going to require wets towards the end. I suspect the answer is going to be no, even if the rain might be heavy enough for wet tyres in the final 2 or 3 laps. That won't matter too much.
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult. Considering how long some of these guys may be able to go on the field, we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, the sun is out in parts of the circuit. The rain is still falling. I mean, there's going to be a rainbow somewhere. I'm not too sure where at the moment, but you know, I'm not sure if that's built into the game or into iRacing, quite frankly. But regardless, that's a completely separate point. Lenaway doesn't really care about a rainbow on the circuit. He more cares about trying to get ahead Nick Ledecky and keeping Denoyer behind, because the Team PGZ driver, he's been lurking, but he's not really made too many moves just yet.
Bit wide on the way in towards turn 5, I should say. That was a lot of understeer. You can tell the speed is going to be down. Last lap times were decent, but as further you go down the field, the more you realise the rain is getting worse. So I mean, Sean Carmody was in the 140s last time round. This track is getting a bit slower as we go along here, and the understeer and oversteer, the sliding across the road is getting a little bit worse as things stand. So some of these corners that didn't take a lot of thinking about before suddenly are going to take a bit more thinking about as they go along, and we will see just whether they require treaded tyres later. But Lenaway is just losing a bit of time here. He's getting out of shape, and here goes Denoyer with an opportunity he wouldn't have otherwise got without the rain. Into the top 5 he goes, but he goes wide. He goes into the gravel, and he's going to be back into it again through the second part of this corner, and they're now going to go into the pit lane. Lenaway didn't go for the overtake. Instead, he goes for the pit lane, as does the race leader.
Interesting to really see how that played out there. With Lenaway coming into the pit lane along with Nick Ledecky, and it was almost just that we saw the number 5 driver go in between the middle of them and stay out on the circuit, but Levesque, Brzezinski and Denoyer are going to be staying out for the time being. Puctel and Mendonca as well. Ethan Bass staying out. Aiden Young as well, and he will be up into P7 momentarily at least. But you know, a big number of drivers in the pit lane. I expect we'll see the rest of them come in the next lap or two.
Side by side out the pit lane between a couple of drivers there. As who was that? Alui and Lemus, by the looks of things. They get it sorted out though just in time for the pit exit. As far as I'm aware, nobody's going on to wet weather tyres though, as that on the outside line there is that is Lemus, is it? Looks like it. Yeah, on the outside line. Simpson was already out on the circuit, and he's still going around. Just over 11 minutes to go. Bit of gravel kicked up. Blake Ziti's gone for the wets by the looks of that graphic. That would be an extraordinary surprise if that indeed proves to be the case, because he was the leader in the AMS and he might have just made a bad decision. We'll see about that as they go down towards the 6th corner. Alui through on Carmody. Lemus going to try and follow through as well, although Carmody has a good run around the outside, not quite good enough. Lemus is going to get round the outside for the next corner, and Simpson slows down dramatically for some reason. He will be definitely 16th, but Ziti on wet tyres as far as that graphic says.
And I'm looking at the timing, our timing pages as well, and I'm seeing well, actually quite an inconclusive gap on himself to the leader. We'll have to see how that will ebb and flow if he starts to lose quite a bit of time on those wet compounder tyres. But more drivers coming into the pit lane. Mendonca, one of those drivers in the 55. Oh, there's 2 guys around. Oh, Dario!
Oh, the lead is going to change here because we've had issues for the race leader. Guillaume Levesque is going to be at the front of this race, and he's already out of the pit lane and onto the circuit in the lead. My goodness, he's going to be off the podium, is Terrio here. Through goes Brzezinski and Denoyer as well. Last week's race winner is going to be on the podium all of a sudden. Nick Ledecky lost quite a lot of time as well somewhere. He's behind Terrio. Oh, look at that, he's done it on his own. My goodness, that's a rare mistake and a costly one as well.
That is not going to please Steve Ontario, the 89 driver. Such good pace so far this evening. Got the pole position, was leading the race relatively comfortably as well. Just to have that kind of moment is going to be absolutely gutting for him, and he will drop down to what should be P4 when Fonseca comes into the pit lane. Not too sure what Fonseca's heart rate was doing then, as we see. Oh my word, but is that? Oh yeah, Denoyer just trying to find a way through on Brzezinski. Is he going to run the outside here before of the 91? That would be an incredible move if he does, and he's made it work. Wow.
That is. Oh, it's not over. Very close. What defence this is from Brzezinski on the outside line, but it's not going to work out. Oh, Denoyer slides though, and Brzezinski's going to be coming up to the back of him here for turn 9. He's going to brake early though, just to get out of the Out of the back end of the McLaren, they both go wide though. Oh, they're all off. Oh, goodness me, they're all off down towards turn 9. This track's getting very wet very quickly. To answer the question in YouTube, by the way, no, they haven't got onto the wets for the most part, but there's people going off the road all over the place. Blake Seaty's taken a big risk. Is he going to look like the hero in 8.5 minutes' time? This track is getting wetter by the second at the moment as Fonseca finally makes his way into the pit lane.
I'm intrigued to see if Blake GT, being on wet tyres, he hasn't really gained or lost much time at all so far. Almost seems like it's a bit of a crossover period for the time being, with 8 minutes left in the race. You'd imagine that it's only going to be getting wetter from here on out. I can't, I don't know how far up the order he'd be able to get if he was able to really use these tyres to his advantage. Fonseca staying on dries, it seems, as he makes his way out of the pit lane. His teammate Ubaldo Diaz is involved in a battle right towards the final corner. Half an hour of this race almost plodding along to the pit stop phase. It's woken up quite significantly.
It certainly has. Oh, as coming out pit lane there, Fonseca gets ahead of Beats and just in behind Ethan Bass in the Mustang. And he's going to have to get used to these conditions all over again back on the circuit. It's Fenton, 17th place. Follow him in the McLaren. A bit further behind. Beats under a lot of pressure here from Alberto Diaz in towards turn 4. Oh, big slide for Beats as well. He gets away with it, goes a bit wide. Here comes Fenton as well. He'll have to go defensive, Beats here into turn 5, and that's not ideal at all. Now we'll switch back to the inside. Diaz is going to make it by the looks of things. He'll have to do it on the brakes. No, he didn't get the exit. Beats got the exit instead, and here comes Fenton. He's going to look to the inside, looks to the outside. Diaz almost feels like he's blocking him, but he's not. He's looking for his own move. Fenton gets onto the curb. He goes wide. Bit of contact. Diaz can't get through. It's all going on here down in the group.
Yeah, big turn 6 has been a bit of a hotbed for action once again, and we're seeing Ubaldo Diaz trying to get past Chris Beats. Maybe he looks to the inside at turn 8. Not going to work out there as they work their way through the lap.
Oh
no, Diaz around. That's the rear end going. Two of them going off together on their own, dragging another couple into it as well. And all of a sudden, Fenton and Keenitz are into the top 16.
Well, this race really has woken up. Ludecky versus Terrio now. And this is big pressure for the pole sitter. And, well, looked nailed on race winner, but no. Simon Terrio now is hanging on to 4th place only. Ludecky round the outside, and he's off in towards turn 1. Can't do it. Meanwhile, Guillaume Levesque versus Kevin Denoyer is really going on at the moment, as well as Elliot Budzinski, who's closed in here. It's Corvette leads, McLaren leads, Acura leads, Porsche at the front of the field as we have another look at this spin, synchronized spinning for Chris Beats and Diaz as well. Ubaldo Diaz, who clipped somebody else who went off into the road, the outside of the corner as well. It was all going on back there, but with just under 6 minutes to go, it's on for the lead as well here. In the end of this race, Guillaume Levesque is going to come under a lot of pressure from his main championship rival, Kevin Denoyer.
Yeah, Levesque second in the championship, leading Denoyer first in the championship, leading Budzinski 5th in the championship. Right at the sharp end of the field are we seeing these battles, and just in behind Derriere and Ledecky through turn 6. Ledecky on the outside line at 7. Can he make this one work? Yes, he can. And the 16 is ahead of the 89 as we see the move for the lead. Is it?
Oh!
Levesque holding on from Denoyer, but Budzinski's coming through as well.
Oh, he tried to get through free wide. He can't do it. He's hit Denoyer. He's hit him. Budzinski there is going to get in trouble for that, you'd think, at the end of the race, and Ludecky looked like he might have got into him as well. He did. Simon Terrio's back on the podium suddenly here. Oh, Kevin Denoyer, the championship leader, spins into the outside of turn 9, and all of a sudden this race is looking very different. Levesque versus Budzinski. After hitting one of his main rivals, Budzinski's going for the win, but he's off. He's going to go wide here down at the final corner. He's not going to get it there. Just over 4.5 minutes to go. And an extraordinary finish to this race. 3 laps remaining.
Yeah, this is an incredible way to close out the 40 minutes of racing here. I'll be completely honest, I am not 100% convinced that we saw Blake Ziti go onto a wet compound of tyre. He's not really gained too much around the drivers around, so we may have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, we kind of caught the start of that, didn't we, in the live pictures, in the contact between those two, Denoyer and, of course, Ledecky. But more drivers off the road. That's the 21 now going wide of Pukdal.
Yep, he's lost it to Leno, and here we go. In towards turn 5. Oh, contact! Budzinski again into the side of Levesque this time. Goodness me! A weave around from Levesque as if to say, what are you doing? Or to put him off, maybe, I'm not sure. In towards turn 6. Brzezinski isn't going to get there this time round. Cortez, meanwhile, has gone off. He's going to drop outside the top 10 as well. Ethan Bass in the Mustang is now in a top 10 position all of a sudden. And Cortez is continuing to drop down the field. Here goes Brzezinski. Oh, my word! Through turn 7. He just drove round the outside of Levesque like he was tied to a post. And all of a sudden, the 91 Acura looks like it might be nailed on and with a great chance possibly to win this race.
Tentative though through this double right-hander at turn 9 and 10. I think my judgment on what tyre drives on has been almost clouded by what we saw in the Daytona 24. This is more contact involving Ledecky. ZT is now gaining time hand over fist compared to drivers around him. Is so much faster at the moment.
Oh!
The P19 now.
Oh!
He's getting about 5 seconds on the last lap to the leaders.
2 laps to go, and it's going to be an ice rink for these guys on dry tyres. You're right, at Daytona this weekend, we saw damp conditions for ages that the wet tyres could survive. I'm afraid round here, it's just not going to be happening. Spin meanwhile for Ethan Bass. He's dropped down to 14, big contact with the wall. And Blake Seat is in prime position now in the AMS because Kevin Kiernetz, I believe, has got a black flag, as has Nick Ledecky, who must have hit the instant limit after the last problems in these last few moments. It looks like Kiernetz may have even been off the road himself as well. It looks like he's crabbing to me. This is what happened to Cortez on the exit of turn 3. That was a spin-on power for him. Kiernetz stays out on the circuit. He's still going at the moment. Still 11th. He's now down to 12th. Or did he come into pit lane eventually? Oh, it's a spin meanwhile for Terrio. He was in the podium places. That's now taken by Corbin Lenaway in the 161. Goodness me, this is a dramatic end to this race.
Yeah, and I don't really know how everybody's going to keep it on the circuit now. This is looking so treacherous. Blake ZT is nearly back inside that top 16. He will be almost certainly very shortly as we see this spin from Terrio just going around at turn 2. That rear end stepping away. There's nothing you could do in that scenario. The rear end's just gone miles before the corner.
Oh, goodness, Brzezinski just about holds it on the road here. That's all he's got to do from here to the end to try and win this one. Brzezinski just hang it on the road and he'll be fine. He's 19 points back in the championship coming into today. Britannia is a long way back now as that off the road down at turn 5. I mean, this is an ice rink now. This is so slippery. Nicholas Mazza joins him in the wall. Was that Kiernetz who was in the wall initially? Ethan Bass has already been in the wall, but he's about to be again. This is absolutely treacherous. Ethan Bass now down to 16th as a result of this. And off, Brzezinski's off again through that penultimate corner. He's got seconds remaining, but he's going to have to do one more lap.
He's going to be looking up at that timer with absolute fury at the fact that he has to do yet another tour of this circuit because the risk is so high now. Last lap time from Brzezinski, it was a 57.6 before. This time it's a 2-minute 1. It's just getting slower and slower and slower. 2.5 from Levesque. They are 4 or 5 seconds slower than they were last lap even. Nearly 10 seconds more than Blake ZT.
Oh, goodness. They nearly slide their way off the road at turn 2. This is unbelievable. The car control required here is unimaginable. Blake ZT is suddenly in 16th place. Look how he's gaining on the tower here. He's made an inspired decision. He's in a big group though, and he doesn't know where to go. This is absolutely extraordinary. Cortez down the inside of Mazza into the final corner. ZT breaks early because all he needs to do is not get involved in a crash here. Levesque has lost a second or so through turn 5. He must have just been sliding about. ZT's going to be in 14th place, and that might be it for him, but we believe Kiernetz has got a black flag. I'm pretty sure that is the case anyway. So it looks like ZT is still going to take the win. We'll check post-race, of course, on that. He is going to switch to the inside and get 40. He might get more because Matt Stepnick is off the road just up ahead. He's lost some positions as well here from the top 10, which he held earlier on. He might actually still be in the wall down there at turn 3, but this is Elliot Brzezinski, who is just coasting his way to the finish here. Lenaway has lost out on third all of a sudden. He's dropped it on the exit. And Juan Lemus is on the podium all of a sudden. Where's he come from? This is quite extraordinary, the end to this race. The white flag is waving though, and Brzezinski is crawling to a race win. I'm not sure he's taken a race win at a slower speed in his life. This is amazing, really. He's lost a second through these final couple of corners as Levesque tries to do what he can. But Elliot Brzezinski is going to come through the final corner, and he's going to take the win here in a dramatic finish at Jerez. The rain has fallen and brought carnage to this circuit, but Elliot Brzezinski has risen above it all, and he's won the third round of the season. 3 different winners in the first 3 rounds in both Fixed and Sprint Series here this season. There's Lenaway. Oh, he's off the road again. Corbin Lenaway has had a disastrous end to this race. He was on the podium. I'm afraid he'll do well to finish in the top 10 now. That will be Puctel who goes through, as Aidan Young tries to catch up to Alui in 5th place. He's not quite going to. He's going to finish 6th. And further back in the AMS, Kevin Kiernetz is going to win on the road, but who is going to win in reality is the big question, because we believe he's got a penalty. So will it be Blake Ziti? Either way, an unbelievable finish to this race here in the PRL Sprint Series as the rain fell and nobody apart from Blake Ziti even bothered going on the wet tyres.
And Blake Ziti, look at how they worked for him at the end of the race. He overtook so many cars and still gained lap time compared to the leaders in the race. He was only, in the end, 4 seconds off the race win in class. He was 11 seconds quicker on the last lap than Kevin Kienitz. Incredible. Absolutely incredible to see him work his way through. He just didn't gain or lose any time compared to the likes of Gavin Ammerman, who finished in 18th overall in the end for a couple of laps, 2, 3, even 4 laps, and then that lap time started to increase for him. Whereas the likes of Lemieux finished the lap on a 2-minute finished race on a 2-minute 11. The race ended for Blake Ziti on a 1:55. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we were told it's Denouet, by the way, who's got a black flag, but he never re-emerged from the pit lane anyway. So I think Kevin Kiernetz is going to win the race nevertheless in 10th. So apologies for scaring anyone who's supporting him this afternoon. He's going to take the win by the looks of things, barring anything post-race. I wonder, Brzezinski, oh, well, there you go. Better to do it now than never, I suppose, or and in the race, as Elliot Brzezinski slides his way off of the road. There was contact with he and Denouet down in towards turn 9 earlier on in the race. I wonder whether race control will have a look at that at some point, but such difficult conditions to end this race, meaning that some of that might well just be offset. We'll wait and see. He still can't get himself to pit lane. He's taken the win, though, ahead of Guillaume Levesque. Juan Lemus finishes on the podium. An extraordinary drive from him to get up there ahead of Simon Terra, the pole sitter. Uthman Alui doing a good job as well as Aidan Young as well, 6th place. Steve Baker, 7th, ahead of Ryan Pucto with Kevin Simpson, 9th, and Kevin Kiernetz, 10th place. He wins in the AMS in the end, we believe. 11th place will be William Fenson, ahead of Blake Ziti, who just missed out on that first place, but he drove very well towards the end on those wet tyres. Great call from him. Chris Beach finished 13th, ahead of Gonzalo Cortez. Nicholas Mazza runs up top 15 of Matt Studwick. Ethan Bass 17th, ahead of Gavin Ammerman, the final driver on the podium in the AMS, ahead of Obaldo Diaz, whose decision to pit early was inspired initially. And then at 20th place was Sean Carmody. Marshall Scare finished 21st in the Only AMG, ahead of David Mendonca and Devin Brock. Fun driver on the lead lap, I believe, although maybe not. Chris Stewart certainly wasn't on the lead lap. Neither was Dino Vella, Noah Anderson, Miguel Angel Fonseca or Joshua Spears, although they did get to the end. Kevin Denouet finished the race in the pit lane repairing damage, as did some of the others like Mark Ludecki, who was up the front towards the end, Mark Elliott and Marc-Andre Desjardins, who retired after the opening lap of that race. Let's have a chat to Elliot Brzezinski, first of all, who's taken the win here in the Sprint Series tonight. Congratulations, Elliot. The first thing to ask you, I'm sure, is about the conditions, because in the final 15 minutes, I thought the rain had come too late for it to really make a difference, but it looked like it certainly did make a difference in the end.
Well, yeah. At first, it honestly wasn't too bad, and I don't know, for me, I guess I'd say fortunately, but we weren't sure whether it was going to be wets or dries. It wasn't on the brink of going a wet track by the time we entered the pits. So I think from what I know, apart from maybe 1 or 2 people, I think everyone was on dries. So Yeah, especially the last 3 laps, man. It was, you touch the rubber wrong, you touch the wrong part of the track, and it's game over. So, luckily, I had enough pace to catch up to Guy. I don't know what happened with Simone, but it was unfortunate for him, as well as just Neuer's. I don't know what happened there, but surely wasn't intentional. But yeah, it just got really really fortunate that I didn't hit any walls or do anything that stupid, and was able to catch Guy. Tried a couple times, finally got past him, and then from there was just making sure we kept it on the black stuff.
Yeah, which you managed to do in the end with a few scares, but you certainly weren't the only one to have those. There was contact though with Kevin Denier, as you I think you mentioned there. What was your perspective on that incident? The 3 of you were battling for the win at one time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say without looking back on it, but we were all in a big group, and then I think I just hit the rubber and slid a little bit, and I don't know if I really hit into him or if it was a turn down or if it was my fault, but if it was, I do seriously apologize. But yeah, there was nothing intentional. I mean, every lap it was getting wetter and wetter and wetter and wetter. It was kind of hard to really predict what the track was going to be like on any specific corner, specific lap. So yeah, unfortunate, but I think we ended up yeah.
Yeah, it was a good battle in the end, a good result for you as well. Congratulations on the win tonight, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yeah, thanks, and it was good to get the PDR Acura back up on top spot. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about it.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. Elliot Brzezinski, the winner tonight at Jerez in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. Aiden Young finished in 6th place, and since none of the other podium drivers have bothered, we'll chat to him instead. Welcome, Aiden. Good to have you with us. And a good run through the field, especially late on there for you. How did you find those conditions at the very end?
Terrifying. I was like, oh no, I saw the rain, and I was like, oh no. This is not gonna end well. And then once the track started getting a bit wetter, I could see it, and I was like, ooh, it's gonna start getting pretty sketchy here soon. So I just tried to gain the gap, get the gaps down as much as I could, because I knew if I got those gaps closer, most likely if people were to make mistakes when it was to get wetter like that on the dry tires, I would just be right there to basically capitalize. So while that rain was light, I just made sure to push as hard as I could, make fast laps, and then once the track got wet, I just focused on just surviving. And as I said yesterday after the GT4 race, I love a rainy night.
Well, yeah, it certainly was a rainy night in the end. But to begin with, you were stuck in a lot of traffic in the dry, and this circuit is quite to overtake. Just how did you find making the moves? Because you did find success in the end. How were you able to go about it?
Sorry, you got out there. You and didn't hear your question.
Sorry, I'll try again. Hopefully it doesn't do it again. You were in the dry weather conditions, stuck in a bit of traffic throughout, but you did manage to get through the field in the end, or make some overtakes at least. Just how were you able to do that?
Well, starting 28th, I kind of knew I was in the mid-pack, so I was like, well, either it's going to go one or two ways. I'm going to die lap 1, or I'm going to manage to somehow pull off the race of my entire life. And it ended up being the second option, so that was pretty cool. But through the traffic, I was just like, okay, kind of just wait, see where the mistakes are, and then pick my move and send it. And then after that, I was just like, all right, now let's try and get 1 or 2, or heck, even if I can, 3 a lap, and just keep moving. And then eventually I got to the point where I think I was up 15 or 16 spots, and then that's when the rain hit. So it ended up, that strategy ended up working out for me. And then I went another lap longer than some of the other people and managed to fuel save just a little bit more. So I had a lot shorter of a pit stop.
What was it? 9.5 seconds in the end, which is pretty short compared to some of the others around you, that's for sure. Congratulations on 6th place and so many places gained tonight, Aidan, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yep, no problem. Hopefully I will see you guys later on.
Yeah, we will see you next time. Aidan Young, 6th place here tonight at Jerez. Well, it doesn't look like we're going to get any of the other podium drivers or indeed the AM drivers in here for a chat, so we'll just about sign off here. A dramatic end to the race, Tara. What a finish there. We're not going to see any rain at Suzuka, but maybe some of the similar action, hopefully some similar action in 1 week's time. Well, he's got his mic muted, so I will just sign off for him instead. And that's just about it from the both of us and indeed RaceSpot here tonight. As I say, we'll be back down Tuesday next week with Suzuka and the final race of the season. Still 2 more rounds of or races this week, I should say. The Truck Series goes to Chicago tomorrow night before the IMSA Series at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, so make sure you tune in for those, both of them starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. For now, though, from myself in Louis Downpacker and Hugo Louis behind the cameras, it's goodbye from Jerez, and we'll see you in 1 week's time for some more GT3 racing from Suzuka. Goodbye for now.